Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire and epic racing action in the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly sponsored by both Musical Money Limited and Old Git Racing Team. It is week number 2 of the championship and after an absolutely thrilling pair of races to open up our season's account at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit a week ago, well, Christmas may be here but it's not stopping our drivers from going racing, and argue you could say this is the best present everybody's asked for, because we continue the story today with rounds 3 and 4 on Sunday the 28th of December 2025, and as we bring this year to a close in the calendar, we've got plenty of racing to come, started of course at the Donington Park National Circuit today, because as we continue the story forward, we made our way northwards in the county of Kent to the county of Leicestershire, and close to East Midlands Airport, you could say that we could see some drivers' championship aspirations take flight come the end of tonight. The National Circuit plays host 10 corners, 1.95 miles in length, and a circuit is all about fast flying bends from start to finish. For our drivers, it's all going to be about absolutely nailing apex to apex, as they'll need to try and carry every mile now they can from corner to corner in the pursuit of victory. But who exactly will come home victorious after our 2 races today? Well, that's what we're here to find out as our drivers all get set and ready to go charging and roaring racing. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight, and you tune on youtube.com and search for TX121TX, all 30 Paul Walsh, and you can be tuning in there. And in the commentary booth you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX121 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll bring you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season. And whereas our broadcast last time out was none other than post-round due to scheduling discrepancies, well, I'm very pleased to say that the broadcast for tonight and all the way through the remainder of the season will be live. So you'll be catching all the racing action as it unfolds. Indeed, it won't be the day after. We are live circuit side right now as our drivers get themselves warmed up in preparation for our 2 races here at Donington Park. And speaking of our 2 races, all 30 are scheduled for tonight, timed in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, as we can see in approximately 13 minutes time, we make it our way into our qualifying session. 10 minutes in duration, like before, however, a slightly different format for tonight, more on that very shortly, and we've seen all the drivers take to the circuit in anger, looking to go for pole position. After which round number 3 will get underway. That'll be our 20-minute sprint race at 5 to 8 this evening. And then after that, we're taking a brief breather before returning for round number 4. And that'll be our 30-minute feature race at approximately 20 past 8 if all runs to plan. And what a pair of races we have. And indeed, we really do have some of the finest circuits in the United Kingdom to open up our season account. And well, this is up there as one of the greats at the heart of British Motorsport. But as we make our way into this round, well, let's recap the story so far and what is lying in wait. Because as we can see, we have made away then from Brands Hatch to Donington Park. Last time out in rounds 1 and 2, it was 2 different winners. However, neither of them was a pole sitter over the course of the race's distance, and we got to see defending champion from season 4, Dennis Johansen, take home the victory in race number 1, having started in 4th place after a dismal qualifying session in that 3-lap average session which caught out many a driver. Meanwhile, in race number 2, it was Daniel Otuga who didn't surprise everybody, because the biggest surprise, of course, was in round number 1 where he got elbowed at Hawthorne's corner into the gravel, but he very quickly found his way to the very front of the field in round number 2 through both strategy and pace, and that's how he was able to bring home the victory in that race. Your pole sitter, meanwhile, in the qualifying session for Brands Hatch, well, that was none other than Adam Tomkins. Back-to-back podium finisher, 2nd in round 1, number 1, and 3rd in round number 2. However, he couldn't quite make it a victory, and we also saw Steff Hermann squeeze himself in there, taking a 3rd and a 2nd respectively, and it is those names which are definitely right at the top of the championship standings thus far. However, we're not going to be bringing you the championship standings as of this round, given the fact we are only what is 2 rounds into this 24-round season, and therefore we'll talk a little bit about the points, but we won't be showing them on screen, but we will be showing them to you as of round number 5 onwards when we start to get a bit more of a picture of how all the drivers form together. But in terms of our calendar then, it is the 28th of December and we are here at the Donington Park circuit. Our qualifying session for today takes a 3-lap closed format. More on exactly what that means very shortly, but as you can see on the table on the right hand side of your screen, we do have the alternated qualifying formats week in, week out, and therefore that keeps things entertaining and fresh when it comes to qualifying, and it serves to potentially mix up the grid week to week. But after tonight, we will then be making our way to the Donington Park circuit, where we'll open up our racing for 2026 on the 4th of January, rounds 5 and 6, and then we'll be making our way all the way onto the European continent, the mainland European continent, and we'll be heading to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre and Circuit Zandvoort, and that will complete our first 10 rounds of the season before we have our long-awaited quadruple header in the United States of America, or should say octuple header there, given the fact it's 8 rounds and 4 weekends, and then we'll be wrapping things up in Australia, of course, at the Phillip Island Circuit, followed by Oran Park Raceway, and then Mount Panorama sees us bring the curtain down. But we've got a long journey to go before we get to Australia. We've got quite some time before we get to the USA or the European continent, and let's talk a little bit more about where we are today. As of course, we are near Castle Donington in the Leicestershire County of England, the United Kingdom, and it's the national layout of the Donington Park racing circuit that plays host. A huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but also the fantastic track maps contained within it, and this track map really bringing to life the layout of the circuit, but not necessarily its rather aggressive and fast-flowing elevation changes. Now, this circuit has played host to a wide variety of open-wheel Formula Series over its extensive history. At one point playing host to Formula 1, albeit on its Grand Prix layout, with the infamous drive from Ayrton Senna, where he charged his way through the field in the wet. However, on an annual basis, this circuit does play host to the likes of Formula 4 and also Formula 3 at a domestic and national level, more commonly referred to as GB3 and GB4. Albeit, a lot of the racing does occur on the Grand Prix layout, but it also does occur on the national layout, and many would say that the national layout is the preferred one because it doesn't make the use of the 2 hairpins known as Melbourne and Goddard's. Instead, we will be seeing those hairpins excluded, and you do have instead what is the Roberts S's at turns 9 and 10, the final chicane to complete the lap. But it'd be rude of us not to talk about lap from the very start, and as our drivers make the way down the short start-finish straight, they'll head very quickly into the 90-degree right-angled right-hander of Redgate Corner, where it's all about that late apex. Emerging out of there, it's then the run downhill through Hollywood at turn number 2, into the Craner curves at turn number 3, and then the old hairpin at turn number 4, where it's then an uphill charge past Starkey's Bridge at 5 and through the Schwann's curve at 6 to get set up for the off-camber right-hander and McLean's at turn number 7. But with elevation changes normally comes blind apexes, and turn number 8 at Coppice is no stranger to it. It's the best example of a blind apex around the world, as the drivers will roar the way up the hill and they'll be braking before the peak of the hill climb, and they'll never see the corner until they've completed their braking, at which point they'll have to chuck the car in and hope they've got it right. Get it right, and they'll power their way down the back stretch into the Roberts S's of turns 9 and 10 to complete lap and do it all over again, and that will be a lap at Donington Park National. Now, as for our rules for tonight, well, firstly, we do need to talk a little bit about the car setup. This is an open setup series of drivers able to bring a setup of their choosing to each and every round of racing and every session they participate in. However, we did have a slight incorrect item on the broadcast last time out, and that was the fuel loads. We said they were restricted to 60% for all race day sessions. That wasn't quite right. They're restricted to 50% for all race day sessions. And therefore, our drivers have a little bit less fuel in the car than we previously anticipated, but that does definitely serve to keep the cars nice and light, and it does force a pit stop, of course, in our second race of the day, but more on that very shortly. As for our qualifying session, well, it's the 3-lap closed format, so this is going to feel very traditional for our drivers. They'll be very used to this. They've raced in any iRacing officials in the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine, or indeed most official series on the iRacing platform. The session is closed. That means that they all have, i.e. all of our drivers have, an isolated instance of the circuit with which to try and set their best possible time, and out of the 3 flying laps they have available, excluding their out lap of course, their best lap will set their final gridding time for round number 3 of the championship. And when they do make the way to the grid, all races shall commence by a standing start, as it's a tradition of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, and there's 1 fast repair available in each race. A drive-through penalty shall be awarded at 17 instant points. Disqualification will rise at 21 instant points. And the grid for the feature race of round number 4 will be set based on the finishing positions of the sprint race, with the top 15 positions inverted. We thought we'd clear that up for you, because there's a little bit of confusion in exactly how we set the grid last time out in round number 2. But indeed, we take the results of the sprint, and whoever takes victory in the sprint, they start in 15th place of the feature, and we work our way down that top 15 until we get to 15th place, and the 15th place finisher starts on pole for the purpose of the feature, and those who finish 16th and downwards, you guessed it, that's exactly where they start from sprint to feature. There is one mandatory pit stop in the feature race, and that's where drivers must refuel. Change your tyres is entirely optional, but we're not expecting any drivers to change their tyres, given the fact the tyre compounds on the Skip Barber Formula machines, they do last the best part of 60 minutes at the ultimate push. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're here for the racing, so let's make our way back to circuit side. And as we do, well, we do take a look at some drivers making the way around here right now, including none other than Gordon van den Bergen, who's currently the fastest of everybody out there in this qualifying session currently, and well, looking very quick there, 1 minute 17.465. Well, I've just said a qualifying session. This is the pre-qualifier, if you will. This is the practice session. Oh, how van den Bergen and indeed a few other drivers might have been hoping that this would be their qualifying session, because they're looking very quick. However, of course, we won't see all the drivers out of the circuit together in qualifying, which is due to get underway in approximately 6 minutes time. Now, if you are tuning in tonight, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. Let us know how you're doing and who you're cheering on today, and whether you've had a good Christmas, of course, because it's always great to hear here whether you had a good Christmas or not. And, well, I'm sure that most drivers here have had good Christmases, and if not, will they be looking to put a smile on their face today by going racing here at the Donington Park circuit. Indeed, a circuit that's absolutely loved. But if you're wondering why it does have the nickname of the heart of British Motorsport, it is because of its centralised location in the United Kingdom. Predominantly within England, of course the United Kingdom made up of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. But if you focus initially on England, what you'll find is the Leicestershire county is right in the dead centre of England, and Donington Park really is at the centre of the country. And on top of that as well, it is a circuit which is located right towards East Midlands Airport. So therefore, if you do look away from the start-finish straight down towards what would be the back end of the circuit, so towards Coppice and also McLean's Corner, you'll see planes taking off and landing out on a regular basis, and they come in incredibly low upon landing. And it's no stranger to the fact that when you're a spectator or a driver, you do actually feel the buffeting of the wind of those planes as they come down to land and as they do take off. However, we will hope that nobody ends up landing flat at their feet, and everyone will be absolutely trying to take flight here and looking to go all the way in for gold. Nathan Wade being one of those drivers as he glides his way down through the crane of curves. But it is a love circuit because of where it's located, and indeed it's no surprise on an annual basis in real world motorsport where you do see individuals come all the way down from the very northern tip of Scotland through to the Devonshire coastline to go racing at the Leicestershire County circuit, because it really is the most accessible circuit of them all in the UK, and none other are quite like it. Although you could say Silverstone, given how close Silverstone is to Donington Park, does fall into that similar category. But then again, Silverstone has its own nickname of being the home of British Motorsport, because it is the home of the BDRC, the British Drivers Racing Club Association. But as our drivers get themselves set, of course 4 minutes left, and Peter Sorpanky here for the Old Gitzer Racing team. Well, we do know that he is looking quite quick at the moment as he makes his way into the pit lane, albeit he's only imagine 9th in this practice session, and I wonder where he's got a little bit more in store. Now, we do have some new names on the grid today, including Frederick Neptune, as we do see him here in the 666, and well, the devil's in the detail with those numbers, but will he find the devil of the speed here today? Will he be a speed demon, or will he be a bit angelic? We're hoping he's a bit of a speed demon, and we look forward to seeing what he can do. And we also do have plenty of other new names on the grid today, some returning names that many of you may remember from previous seasons, but also we've got completely fresh faces such as Neptune, I do believe, and including other fresh faces, we do have Ronnie Schubert here, the number 20 drivers. He makes one around there in the rather pearlescent liveried machine, and he's currently the 30th fastest in this practice session. We have 33 drivers here today, which is absolutely brilliant. We always love to see packed grids, and this round at Donington Park is no exception. We also do have none other than, he's currently in the pit lane, I think having some work done on the car, Christopher Geros Jr. We hope to see him out there a little bit later on. We also have Marcus Byfeld, and I do believe Marcus right now is currently in the pits. Indeed, several of them in the pits, so therefore they're a little bit camera shy perhaps. I wonder if we can find Marcus's car parked up at the moment. I don't think we can, so we'll try and get a look at that a little bit later. We also do have Jesus Cabal in the number 6 here. Very colourful machine there from Jesus, I must admit, but it's a nice looking car. Well, that's definitely going to stand out, and welcome to him on the grid. And we also do have out there, I believe, none other than Brian Kelly, who's looking very quick at the moment, currently 5th fastest and only 1.6 tenths off the overall fastest time in this practice session. And we also do have there some returning names, including Ludwig Sauer, who many of you may remember from previous seasons. I remember him all the way back from season 1. And also we do have Rodi van der Meerden, and I do believe the Dutchman is currently in the pit lane. He is parked up, albeit we can't see him in the pits. He's left the car and they've put the car back in the garage, but van der Meerden is here as well. So we've got them both returning from previous seasons, but we've also got the likes of Benjamin Harris here as well, albeit Harris is currently parked up in the pit lane. And we also do see the return once again of Simon Wareham in the number 71. He's currently the 27th fastest, and I believe that's all of our new drivers today, unless I've missed anyone. In fact, I have missed somebody. It's now Richie Robinson, who's currently in the pit lane as well. But to all of our newcomers, we're very happy to have them here, and we wish them the best luck on their debuts, as right now Brian Kelly is going quicker and quicker. In fact, only 26 thousandths of the fastest time for Van den Bergen. I wonder if Brian Kelly is going to surprise everybody here today. Unfortunately, we are missing a couple of drivers as well tonight, and perhaps the biggest missing driver of them all is none other than Chris Wayne, I do believe, who couldn't quite make it. How I do believe he is spending time with his wife, and therefore he couldn't quite argue his way out of that one. And to be fair, we wouldn't want Chris to argue his way out of that one, because understandably his family does come first, although he does have his absolutely lovely Skippy family here, and we all miss him. But understandably, the Old Git Racing team driver won't be on the grid until rounds 5 and 6 at Alton Park in a week's time, and we look forward to seeing him back there. But as our drivers all come towards the end of this practice session, And the one that everyone's going to be watching out for today, he's currently 4th in the championship, is none other than Daniel Otuga, the man who unfortunately didn't quite go to plan for him last time out. Whereby, with his pace, you would have thought he would have been on a double podium, if not back-to-back victories. However, it went wrong in round number 1, but he made it right in round number 2, and therefore everybody's wondering, can he try and make it right the first time round this time? We'll have to wait and see, because he has proven to be a very quick driver, but has he got a quick head on him here at Donington Park? So it's a rather different circuit to Brands Hatch's Grand Prix layout, in the fact the theme of medium-speed corners stays true, but around here there's a lot more momentum to be able, because you have the elevation change aspect. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, practice is complete. 45 minutes is over like that, and therefore we need to make our way then into the qualifying session and see who can put it on pole here at Donington Park, and who meanwhile may find themselves having had too much turkey on Christmas Day. And so qualifying commences. It's 10 minutes and it is free flying laps to all our drivers. Isolated instance of the circuit available to each of them. It is a closed qualifying session, but they also have the out lap. Now, how important is qualifying here at Donington Park? Well, we have seen already that these skiffy machines can run very close to each other, and the whole aim of the game is to stay close to the leader and pick up the tow. However, you do want to be towards the front here at the Donington Park circuit, because it only takes one small mistake for a driver in the pack, and suddenly, particularly if they make the mistake at the old hairpin, which you see Titus de Jong getting ready to go into, the fast sweeping right-hander at the bottom, at the lowest point of the circuit, every mile now you lose at this corner adds up to approximately 3 miles now you lose by the time you get to McLean's, which as he makes his way up through Starkey's and then Schwann's, and it's suddenly the switch into the right-hander here at McLean's, and that is the delta. Every mile now you lose at the end of the hairpin, you lose 3 miles now by the time you get to McLean's when you are in the draft, and that's how important it is to get a good run around here, and understandably you want to be right towards the front of the pack, so if you do make any mistakes, you don't fall back into the clutches of the rest of the field. It can get very aggressive here racing at Donington Park, albeit we expect very respectable racing between all of our Skip Barber Formula 2000 drivers. Indeed, many of these drivers have been on the grid since Season 1. It is a very close-knit community, but they all want to go for victory as well. They're friends off the road, but on the road they're fierce rivals, and as Nathan Wade makes his way in towards the S's chicane, well, he gets ready to go on to his first flying lap, of which we'll jump on board and take you around for initial flyer, as brought to you by the absolutely brilliant Nathan Wade as he roars his way on down. Then in towards the opening corner, speed of 109, 110 miles an hour. Onto the brakes he goes there, using the pit lane exit to open up Red Gate Bend, down to second gear, and at the apex there, hitting 65 miles an hour, ran a little bit deep, a bit too aggressive towards the apex, but able to get it back together as he now makes his way down through Hollywood. Further he goes into the Craner curves, completely unsighted as he turns into left-hander. Now keeps over to the left-hand side, a dab of the brakes, get the weight onto the nose, and then chucking it through the corner at 84 miles an hour, drifting sideways there as he exits the old hairpin and now cuts as much as he can of Starkey's and up the hill roar in towards Schwann's. Here it's the quick left into right. You mount the curve of Schwann's to set up your line in towards the right-hander of McLean's. And as he hugs the apex curve, it pulls the car around, it upsets the weight balance of the car and forces the rear left tire to do a lot of work. Now over the rise he goes into Coppice Bend. But notice there, having to brake nice and early, drop down to third gear before he can even see the corner. By the time he comes off the brake, only then will he see the corner. And now as he makes his way down the back straight, heading upwards of 100 miles an hour once again, he'll be making his way as close as possible to fifth gear. There he goes. And into his final corner, he makes his way onto the brakes, braking about 100 meters per corner, apex down from fifth to third gear, mounting those curves very aggressively there. But Nathan Wade keeping it nice and clean as he makes his way towards the timing line. And that is a lap of the 1.95 mile Donington Park Racing Circuit's national layout, brought to you by Nathan Wade in the number 24, and you can expect even more aggressive laps to come now, as we're seeing plenty of times coming in, including there for Marcus Byfeld, who was in the pit lane for the majority of the end of the practice session, but he has gone the fastest, only to be pipped by Adam Tomkins now on a 1 minute 18.199, and indeed, with the fact that our drivers only need to do it right on one lap here, but they have 3 laps available to them, this has definitely opened everybody up, and we're starting to see a whole mixture of suspects at the very top. Of course, the qualifying session last time out was all about who was Mr. or Mrs. Consistent, whereas here it's not about consistency, as we do say hello there to Chris Wayne, who is tuning in right now and says, gutted I couldn't make it, but looking forward to watching. And Chris, we're very happy to have you with us, and well, I hope you're doing well, sir, and you've had a good Christmas. And to all of you tuning in, I do hope you had a good Christmas and are now all set to New Year's week, which is due to get underway tomorrow, as it is Sunday, of course, day, and Monday is only approximately another 4 hours away if you're based in the United Kingdom. But still, what's even a corner away right now for Adam Tomkins, or a pair of corners away we should say, is the end of his second flying lap. And well, he's not quite putting together as quick a lap this time, but Marcus Byfeld is. He's gone purple in Sector 1. His Sector 2 is a personal best, and right now, can he go to pole? As Renko Plessia jumps up to the top of the time tower, matching Tomkins there to the nearest 1,000th. And then we see Brian Kelly moves up there as well. And here goes Marcus Byfeld, and that's a 1 minute 18.043, half a tenth quicker. Can we get into the 17.9s? I think the answer is yes, we potentially can, but who's going to be driving the absolute limit to do so? We're not too far away from finding out. As meanwhile, Tom Payne in the 88 makes about the hill, yet to get about a lap on the board. He's yet to actually complete his out lap. So Payne's decided to take his time. To be fair, he has got plenty of time, and that's one of the nice things about this 10-minute qualifying session. When the lap is just over a minute in length, it's not quite 1.5 minutes, you can actually sacrifice a couple of minutes to tweak bits of the setup and make some observations of what's going on. However, you can't wait for too long, of course. And Frederick Neptune, meanwhile, well, he makes his way down the backstretch, yet to get their lap on the board. He's on his second flying lap in the 666 machine. As he gets ready, he's gone to the brakes into the S's. Well, he's not got long left to try and do this, both in terms of laps and time in the session. Right into left he comes. What's it going to be this time then as he makes his way towards that timeline? Is it going to be gold, or is it going to be all for naught? And the answer is, for Frederick Neptune, it is going to be... It's not a bad lap. He's going to have one more chance of this then. Otherwise, he will be starting from the back for the purposes of race number 1, as we have our first 17 on the board. Marcus Dorner absolutely demolishes the competition. Then Brian Kelly says, no, you don't. I can go faster than that. Well, it was a 117.891, and that's a 117.864. Kelly and Dorner, and then Tomkins comes on through at 17.707. Tomkins right now absolutely pisses the sky even higher, 1.5 tenths quicker. If anyone can beat that right now, well, I think that car's going to be looked at under the weighbridge afterwards, because goodness me, Adam Tomkins, well, he was absolutely perfect for pole at Brands Hatch, and I think he's done it again. But we've got several drives still in their final flying laps, as we see Daniel Otuga here making his way out to the old hairpin. But did he run a bit too wide there? Did that count as valid? I'm not 100% sure. He did use all the road, plus also the exit curb and some of the runoff patches. We'll have to wait and see by the time he gets up the hill. But right now, everyone's pushing it to the limit. Everyone knows how much qualifying well here is going to matter. You can overtake, no doubt about it, at Donington Park. However, when you're battling around here, you lose so much time. Like Brands Hatch, fighting around here will cost you entire seconds over a lap, not tenths. And Daniel Otuga right now driving right on the limit here, and I suspect with the runoffs he's been using, he has been on the verge of potentially invalidating his lap. As meanwhile, the split livery machine of Neil Garden across the line, the 74, it was 12, it jumps up to 9th down an 18.250, so good improvement there from Gardner, but he won't be going any higher than that. Otuga heads towards the line. Is it valid or is it not? He was 11th. As he straight lines his way across the timeline, it's not a valid lap. That run wide out of turn number 4 has cost him, and at the old hairpin, Otuga's dreams have been dashed. Meanwhile, has anybody else got another lap in them? Tom Payne has got this one plus one more as he dances his way into the old hairpin, a bit too aggressive with the speed he carries in, and in the end has to get it settled back down. It's a deceptive corner, the old hairpin. You think you don't need to brake too much, but you really do need to get the weight on the nose, and you need to bleed off some speed, as otherwise very quickly you'll either understeer deep or you'll oversteer as you try and get the power down as he drifts his way through McLean. So that's one way of doing it, but I don't think it's the right way for Tom Payne. And meanwhile, Noah Ritchie Robinson in the lime green machine, he's on his first flying lap here, so he's decided to take his time. But to be fair, by taking his time here, he might have composed himself and given himself some targets to work towards. Some drivers are like that. They only want to go qualifying once they've seen some laps on the board, and they enjoy being under pressure to try and match them. Well, Ritchie Robinson crosses the timeline this time. What's it going to be? Well, it's currently the slowest of the laps that are valid. It's a 21.255, but I suspect there's a bit more out there for the 696 driver. He just needs the time to try and put it together. As they all make the way on through, Benjamin Harris is in the pit lane with an issue with the car. I do, in fact, that's Kennedy as I look out my content booth window, not Harris. Harris on a slowdown due to track limits, but he's not got any more laps available to him. And Tom Payne, well, currently has improved. He's improved by 6 tenths, but he's still in 31st place. He's now on his final flyer. What's it going to be here? 1.5 minutes left on the clock. He'll get this lap done. The same for Ritchie Robinson, but Robinson will not get his final lap in, because I do believe when the clock strikes 10 minutes, that's it, that's your lot. We don't have overtime rules in effect here, and therefore it means that for all drivers, they've got to get it done within 10 minutes. Otherwise, they will be left standing there wondering what will happen next. But as Payne makes his way up the hill, through the right-hander of turn number 7 in towards 8. And right now, up into Coppice Bend he goes. It's right-handers all the way for the time being. And Payne sliding his way on through. And the real art of driving these skippies, of course, is to be able to drive them on the limit. You want to drive them through the corners sideways, effectively, albeit not too sideways to the point the rear steps out. But there's a very fine line between drifting and oversteer. And you'll see when they're sliding their way, drifting their way through the corners, where they're having to balance everything on those rear tyres. But as he makes his way on through, Payne this time a little bit quicker, and he is on a personal best in sectors 1 and 2. What's it going to be to complete his qualifying session then? It was 2.4 seconds off the pole, and he jumps up to 21st. A good effort there from Payne, and 18.952 puts him right between Schubert and Elliott and puts him on that 11th row of the grid. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is complete. Frederick Neptune there just parked up, and I believe Benjamin Harris. Oh, something's gone a bit wrong there for Harris. He's into the barrier. That's at Redgate Bend, and well, that hasn't gone quite right at all for Benjamin Harris. And Frederick Neptune right now, I think, just practicing, parking up the car there and waiting to see what will happen next. Perhaps he's practicing his grid starts or checking out the stall and the clutch. But either way, qualifying is complete, and it is Adam Tomkins, ladies and gentlemen, who has taken pole position. And without further ado, it's time for us to make our way to the grid for round number 3 of the championship. And so as all the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they line up for our first of our 2 races here at the Donington Park National Circuit. In round 3 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 on iRacing, brought to you by Musical Money and Old Git Racing, it is Adam Tomkins who has made it back-to-back pole positions from qualifying the privateer, and he will be joined on that front row of the grid by Brian Kelly. Behind them on row number 2, it'll be Marcus Dorner and Steff Hermann, with row number 3 going to Marcus Byfeld and Jeff Randall. The Old Git Racing team drive will then be followed up by Nathan Wade and Remco Placia, with the Raging Turtle Racing Machine followed up by Neil Gardner and Derek Kennedy to complete your top 10. Behind the Whiskey Windmill Bandit driver, we then do have a row number 6 consisting of Daniel Otuga and also George Maddock, who says in the YouTube chat that he's feeling a bit rusty, but good to have you with us, George, and looking forward to seeing what you can do on the grid. We then do have Ludwig Sauer and Titus de Jong on row 7, ahead of Klaus Biedermann and Gordon von den Bergen. 17th, it's Simon Wareham ahead of 18th place starter Frederick Neptune, with Benjamin Harris and Ronnie Schubert completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, 21st, it's Tom Payne ahead of David Elliott, with Roddy van der Meijden starting 23rd ahead of Jesus Cabal, and then we do have Peter Suapanki and Lee Payne on row number 13. Jared Steele and Joshua Harley make up row number 14, but the opposite way round for the purposes of the grid, with Marcel de Hint and Paul Smithhurst completing the top 30. Outside the top 30, it will then be Christopher Geros Jr. and the last who set a lap, Noel Ritchie Robinson, with James McRitchie starting last in our order. So 33 starters, the lights are going on. It's time for race number 1, ladies and gentlemen. And so it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's firing lights. And it's lights out, and away we go here for the first of our 2 races. 20 minutes ticks away, and Adam Tomkins gets a good start here as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Brian Kelly there, immediately tucking into the draft. Marcus Dorner following, but behind Steff Hermann and Marcus Byfeld battling into turn number 1. It's a good start for the top 3, but not so for Byfeld, who falls all the way backwards here slightly, and Steff Hermann finds himself in the thick of it as they make the way out to Redgate Corner. All the field immediately now charging away through Hollywood. It's going to be a blockbuster here, not for the first time today, I'm going to be saying that. And as they come down the hill in towards the crane of curves, well, plenty of driver here getting it too wide, but you can see the long snake train of skip machines as they roar the way up the hill, and as they do, everyone's safely on through the opening few quarters. A couple of 2 wides there off in the distance, but we look from the blimp camera to further down the order. And Joshua Harley fighting hard here, getting ahead of Geros Jr. And Geros Jr. in the battle now with Marcel de Hint and Paul Smithhurst. They make the way through Schwans, and it's going to be 2 wide here between Smithhurst and de Hint, but Smithhurst will be up the inside, and de Hint is going to have to let that one go, at least for the time being, as we've got a couple of cars wide. Not quite sure who's gone wide. I think that was Lee Payne taking a bit of a rallycross approach to the runner out McLean's in towards Coppice, but then he gets it back together, albeit Smithhurst there getting grouped up behind Lee Payne's car, but finally finds a way on through. But to the front of the field here, and Brian Kelly battling with Adam Tomkins, and Kelly goes very late on the brakes. Oh, goodness me. He goes way too deep into the S's and glides his way onto the exit curve in there, and Kelly brings it back together, but he does so. Adam Tomkins retakes the lead. Now they make their way down towards turn 1. Tomkins, Dorner, Byfeld, that's your top 3, but it's a big scramble here thanks to what happened only moments ago for Brian Kelly, and they're all right now raging and roaring around each other as they come through Redgate Bend. Tomkins definitely has got himself clear slightly, and Marcus Dorner right now trying to hold on with Marcus Byfeld right behind. And well, it's the battle of the 2 markers. Marcus's here, or Mark, shall I say. And will Steff Hermann, meanwhile, fighting hard with Byfeld as they make the way down through Crane Curves, but this will put him on the outside into the old hairpin. What can he do from there? The answer normally is you've got to go for the switchback. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of momentum up the hill. Where he goes for it, and Jeff Randall and Nathan Wade are together here as we ride on board the cockpit of Jeff Randall's car. Now going in towards the left hand of Schwanz. He's got to position himself very well for the next sequence of corners if he wants to try and find a way to get through. But the answer is he's going to wait his turn as he tucks into the draft a little bit more, does Randall. He keeps looking for this, but right now he's going to be patient ever more so as Nathan Wade is also playing the patience game as Remco Pleissier and Neil Garner all queuing up behind here. It is a long train of cars right now and nobody wants to be disruptive. The idea is you don't fight until the very end of the race. You have to just gradually pick your way through, and it's a bit of gentleman racing at the moment as Randall will go up the inside here of his rival of none other than Steff Hermann. Hermann knows it's a position for now. It's only so they can stay together and not lose any time to the cars in front. But on the final couple of laps, suddenly the gloves will come off and the saying of the enemy of my enemy is my friend will no longer apply as they get ready to go into a red gate bend. Now your leaders, Tomkins and Dorner, are definitely starting to pull away a little bit. They have put half a second between themselves and Marcus Byfeld, but looking back towards the bottom end of the top 10, there's still plenty more to go on here as Brian Kelly has fallen all the way down from Grace all the way down to 10th place, and it may not be over yet because David Kennedy, the Scotsman, right now fighting hard here, flying the Scottish colours on his car and well fighting as much as he can, and meanwhile Brian Kelly trying to stay ahead. And confusingly, Kelly does have the Scottish colour scheme on the car, but David Kennedy does have a flag as Kennedy goes sideways there. So does Brian Kelly in front of him, and it's going to be a big scramble up the hill. 3 wide, almost 4 wide there as they make the way around. And my good lord, Gordon van den Bergen, how on earth did you keep that on the road? I do not know. I think he had to take quite a bit of grass with him, but managed to rejoin at full speed there. And van den Bergen, the sickhead racing Phantom machine, squeezes wound through ahead of George Mattock and also Klaus Biedermann. And David Kennedy at that point, well, I can tell you one thing, Kennedy will be thinking to himself, how on earth did I hold on to that, and how on earth did I survive having 5 cars swarm their way around me like an angry nest of bees? Well, right now for David Kennedy, I think he's going to look back at that one afterwards, and the whole team will, and they'll all be asking the question, what on earth exactly happened there? But that goes to show you how skilled all these drivers are. And the fact that nobody came to blows then, everyone survived that. And well, meanwhile, Jesus Cabal is battling here with Simon Wareham. Wareham goes a little bit wide in the all-white machine and down towards another lap they come. But they're going to be fighting hard over 18th place as they get ready to go onto the brakes. And Wareham right now defending to the inside. But it's going to be Cabal who looks around the outside in the very colourful light blue and yellow machine. 2 wide they enter. And in the end, it is going to be Wareham who holds on for the time being. Meanwhile, Gordon van den Bergen, he's not satisfied yet with the moves he's made. He's going to try and make another one here for 11th place and Titus de Jong. De Jong there in the Turtle Racing machine, the Raging Turtle machine. Red and green is its colours. But right now, the Phantom machine from Sickhead Racing of Van den Bergen is going to clear the Dutchman. Albeit I get the feeling that it's going to continue all the way up the hill now as they rise their way in towards the next zone. This will be into the left-hander of Schwanz and the right-hander of what will be McLean's. And it is going to be Titus de Jong on the inside. Van den Bergen tries to squeeze him a little bit there, albeit fairly, it should be added. But because they're still fighting, George Mattock now gets involved as they roll their way over the rise. And in the end, Mattock now trying to go for the switchback. He'd like to try and make it 3 wide, but de Jong sees that inside line and says, Van den Bergen, I'm coming for you. Oh, that's not nice. As there's a bit of contact there as Mattock tries to squeeze his way in between the 2 cars. And in the end, finds out Van den Bergen wants to come across. A bit of misanticipation from both drivers there. And Titus de Jong right now is going to be wondering how on earth did they survive that? And well, answer on the postcard, ladies and gentlemen, if you please. But meanwhile, with all that fighting going on in the mid-pack, at the very front of the field, Adam Tomkins, Marcus Dorner and Marcus Byfeld, your top 3 together, and Steff Hermann is now being allowed to close up a little bit. They stopped fighting, and Hermann, meanwhile, is now starting to pull his way forward, as then 2.5 seconds back, here's your fight for 5th place. It's Wade and Randall, and well, where have we said that multiple times before? As Jeff Randall does squeeze ahead coming down to Craner. However, I think that's more tactically to stop them from fighting each other, because Remco Pleissier, Neil Gardner and Daniel Otuga are there, as Randall goes more sideways than straight coming out of the corner. But onwards they go and up the rise on this 5th lap. We've got plenty more laps to come here. Remember, there's no pit stop in this race. This is all about on-track action. Anyone who comes to the pits, it's for a penalty or for damage on the car. Alternatively, they've underfueled the car by mistake. But Jeff Randall right now doesn't normally make mistakes like that, and he's trying to hold on to 5th. But I think he wants to move a little bit further forward. Randall would love to take a victory. However, the problem is that every time he does hunt one down, normally somebody gets in the way. And well, Daniel Otuga, the man who we thought today could be one to watch here, well, right now the number 91 driver who we ride on board with, I think think is wondering where exactly did it go wrong in qualifying and how exactly does he get into the lead battle. But keep in mind, if he was to finish in 9th, he would be starting in effectively 7th place for the purposes of race number 2 here today. So therefore, it's not all bad, and sometimes you can make your way to a championship by just being Mr. Consistent on the points. But hold up a second, we've got some drama. Oh my good lord, there's a lot more drama than meets the eye, and that's coming out of the S's. We've got multiple cars absolutely off the road. Klaus Biedermann there in the coffee bean machine. The number 40 trying to carry on, but it's got a very heavily damaged rear wing. It's not centrally aligned, and I think there's a lot more than meets the eye of that moment. We're going to have to get a replay of that when we can, but multiple drivers caught up in a big shunt there, and Klaus Biedermann right in the heart of it in the end. That has not worked out whatsoever. Can we get a quick replay? Yes, we can. So this was Peter Suopanki firstly. He was making his way through the S's. Something had already gone wrong in front of him. So in the end, he's going to get collected by the two cars going together, Jesus Cabal and also there the number 40 of Klaus Biedermann. But what exactly happened before that? Well, this was a little bit earlier. This was Gordon van den Bergen battling with Titus de Jong. Is this where it started? So into the S's they went. It was too wide on entry, but in the end, Van den Bergen goes a bit wide, so he gets it together, but Simon Wareham's already into the grass when the camera catches up to him. Do we have an alternative camera angle to explain? Yes, we do. So this was Simon Wareham trying to go 3 wide under braking. That's brave and bold. In the end, a bit of a pinch, but oh, a bit of a tap there from the car behind, perhaps. Alternative hits the apex curb at an oblique angle, but that really is a bit of a difficult one. So Simon Wareham was in his own instant in the way, and in Suopanki Cabal, and also there, none other than the 40 of what was Klaus Biedermann, all caught up in a separate altercation. Well, we come back to your live racing. A bit of an odd one there. 2 instants wrapped into each other, but we can't analyse it too much more because otherwise we'll miss the live racing. And here we are then, as we do look back to your leaders, and it's Tomkins, Byfeld and Dorner with Hermann. And then we do have a 2.8 second gap now to Jeff Randall, who's trying to close up. However, there's still a bit of road between him and the top 4, and I think that might be the way it stays here unless they all start to fight. However, never say never. We've got plenty more laps to go. We've got plenty of time in this race, and right now I would imagine that our top 4 are all starting to fall into the fashion, which is have a little scrap, no doubt about it, but don't fight too hard because we don't want any more to be involved in this battle. If your name is Adam Tomkins, you may want more cars to arrive in this battle. You may want to intentionally now start to sap the pace out of this group. However, they are all veterans of these skippies, and therefore the thought process will be, if they're aware that the driver in front, as Byfeld there, completely locks up on the brake and almost taps the rear Tomkins car, goes to the gravel. Well, we've seen that multiple times already today in the top end of the field and also lower end. So that's going to be Byfeld taking a slowdown penalty there. Well, that's completely thrown to the wind what we were about to say. And what we were going to say was the fact if a driver behind one of the leaders detects that the driver in front is trying to back them into another set of cars, they'll very quickly make it known. It won't be to the stewards, they'll sort it out on circuit. And what they'll do is simply pass them in the slipstream there and become the leader and try to pull away. But that can do there for what was Adam Tomkins. He didn't need to. Marcus Byfeld making a mistake of his own volition with the overspeed into the S's. And well, Dorn and Hermann have moved up places. And Byfeld now, he's 1.3 seconds off of Hermann. But intriguingly, he's 1 second away from Nathan Wade. Although saying that, he's just picked up a slowdown for track limits at the old hairpin, and therefore Byfeld will now lose the toe of the top 3. What could have happened there was suddenly Byfeld would have been an intermediary that would have brought the 2 groups together, but that may not be possible now as Byfeld tries to bleed that slowdown penalty as gradually as possible. He doesn't want to lose too much race time, but he knows he has to burn the time somehow, and he'll be tactical here. He'll be applying about 80% throttle when he's meant to be 100%, and on entry into corners he will lift and coast wherever he can. He has to slow down in the end coming out of Coppice Bend to burn it, but you'll notice he doesn't lose as much time as he perhaps would have if he just simply lifted as quickly as he came out of the old hairpin. But then again, it is also dangerous to do so given the speeds that these machines pick up out of the old hairpin all the way in towards Coppice Bend. So therefore Marcus Byfeld falls back into the fight for 4th effectively now. Our top 3 have absconded, and then it's 4th all the way through to 10th place altogether, and we can see Remco Palacio there getting involved. We have got the 777 machine of Peter Suopanki that's a lap down on the back of this, but it cannot get involved as such because it is a lap down. But right now getting involved with each other, that's Neil Gardner and Daniel Otuga, as Gardner there in the Marlboro and Benson and Hedges Jordan machine. Indeed, he couldn't decide which tobacco brand he wanted to be sponsored by, so he's gone for both there, and indeed harking back to the tribute to 2 of the Honda powered Formula 1 machines of early years, one of them being McLaren Honda, the other one being Jordan Honda. And right now for Neil Gardner, he's trying to keep Brian Kelly and Daniel Otuga at bay, as Kelly's going to try and pick his way around the inside to outside line here. That's bold, that's brave from Brian Kelly, and in the end. He's going to be allowed to coexist, but he does have to back off slightly in the 3-2-1, as Daniel Otuga in his number 91 will look up the inside. So Otuga here right now find himself having to be a bit tactical about this. He is meeting his match in Brian Kelly, and Kelly is very impressive, it must be said, on his debut round for this season. He is really putting together a very good performance. Unfortunately, of course, he had that mistake at the start of the race that dropped him out of the top 5. However, right now, it has not dampened his spirits whatsoever, as Remco Palacio looks up the inside, and the Raging Turtle Racing Drive will make it too wide all the way through. They both just about survive it, and they go on to another lap. But it's not over yet between them with 8 minutes to go plus a final lap. You can understand if both of these drivers right now are thinking, I want to be ahead, I don't want us fighting anymore. But the problem is neither driver wants to back off here and Placer on the inside, Kelly on the outside into Redgate Bend. It is going to be Placer who just gets a nose ahead here coming in towards Hollywood. But it is still not over between them. Both drivers here continue to fight each other. And I think Kelly at this point is going to have to make a decision soon. Is he going to fight it? Yes, he is. That's going to cost him even more time down through Craner into the old hairpin. But they're giving us an absolutely brilliant spectacle. And Brian Kelly does get ahead for now. A bit further back, Benjamin Harris and David Kennedy. They're fighting over 16th place. But the man everyone will be watching is this man in 15th. As that's a small lock-up for Ludwig Sauer just in front. And in fact, Sauer's gone a bit wide there coming out of the old hairpin. But he keeps it together. And it is Frederick Neptune. The reason why, firstly, because we do have some fans in the YouTube chat for him, and none other than the user called Patolki there, who we hope is doing well, who says Frederick Neptune for the win. But the reason why he is the man to watch is because he's 15th, and that means he will be your top 15 pole sitter for the purposes of the feature race or round number 4 of the championship, which is coming up later today. So therefore, he's now got a decision to make. Does he make some more moves and potentially move himself further down the starting grid for race number 2, or does he stay where he is and make sure that David Kennedy and Benjamin Harris cannot get close enough? Well, I think the answer is going to be the first one at this rate, because Ludwig Sauer right now is struggling for a bit of pace, and Frederick Neptune is looking very quick here, and I think right now he needs to sacrifice the first place start for perhaps a second place start to make sure he doesn't fall into 16th and be relegated out of that top 15 inverted grid. It's easy for me to say in the commentary bit of how these drivers have got to make those decisions at high speed, and right now they may not be reaching upwards of 140 miles an hour, which sometimes Formula 3 and Formula 2 machines can reach around here, but the key point being that for these drivers, they are in some cars which are very lightweight, they require a lot of concentration, but you also got to think tactically about where you want to start for race number 2 if you can't win race number 1. And Frederick Neptune right now does have Kennedy inching closer and closer with every corner turned as we ride on board the Whiskey Windmill Bandit Brigade machine from Scotland. And well, he's looking at this right now. He knows what he wants, does Kennedy. He knows, having started all the way in 10th place, if he can't finish 10th, he'll finish 15th, and what he'll do is he'll take the reverse grid pole position, and by doing so, he'll then guarantee himself an extra opportunity to gain some more points. However, I think Neptune has now realised this as they danced away through Coppice Bend. Kennedy a lot more pointed in the attitude of the car, it must be said. He's not letting the car slide off of apex, unlike Neptune, so therefore he is protecting the rear end of the car a little bit more, albeit he's risking losing a bit of speed, but his consistency will be absolutely off the charts by comparison, as Benjamin Harris has now fallen to what is 7 tenths behind this battle, and I think he's more of an observer at the moment at least, as they exit the S's onto the start line, finish straight they go. 5 minutes left, several more laps remaining, and here comes Kennedy looking for the move on the inside on Neptune in towards Redgate Corner. He's going to go for it. How much would he go in for it? And the answer will be he'll go 50-50 here, and he's going to play it quite smart and safe. He doesn't want to lunge it because he doesn't want to lose Ludwig Sauer in front. Another opportunity there to move into 14th potentially. Therefore he backs out, Neptune covers him off, and it's a bit of a poor run down through Hollywood there. Benjamin Harris now tries to get involved, but he's not going to be able to, and they will stay for a line for now. Back to the very front of the field, your top 3 still bolting off into distance. It's Tomkins, Dawn and Hermann. Then you have this big scramble of 5 drivers for 4th place. It's Jeff Randall now ahead of Nathan Wade and Neil Gardner and Marcus Byfield and Daniel Otuga. 2 by 2 they enter Coppice. This isn't Noah's Ark, but right now it's absolutely biblical driving for the right reason. Nathan Wade on the inside there, Randall. He'll take 4th place back. Randall, meanwhile, trying to out-drag him down the back stretch as it's 3 wide behind him. Gardner on the outside, Otuga in the middle, and then Byfield on the inside. Byfield backs off entirely. Wade, meanwhile, has to contend with Randall pushing him every step of the way through the S. There's a bit of contact wheel to wheel there. They survive it. Randall moves back into 4th. Wade now is pushed down slightly. Here comes Neil Gardner looking around the outside, but look to the left of the picture, you'll see Daniel Otuga. He's trying to make it 3 wide here. He's putting himself on a tight line, but he has Byfield looking for the move around the outside, so he has to back off. Wade now has to cover off Gardner there for what is 5th place, and meanwhile Byfield and Otuga are all going to be over the back of Gardner and Wade very shortly, and Jeff Randall may have bought himself a lap's worth of breathing room here. Whether he can hold on to it for the remainder behind, we will see. Further down the road, let's talk about some drivers who've had some difficulties but enjoy themselves. Here's Noel Richie Robertson. He's chasing after Lee Payne. Payne had a nightmare start to the race. However, he has since recovered from it, and Richie Robinson right now is chasing him for position and needs to enjoy a good little scrap for what is 25th place. We'll come back to that a bit later as we come back inside your top 10. But there's stories to be told everywhere up and down this grid, no doubt about it. And Randall, Gardner, Wade, Otuga, Byfeld, Kelly and Placia are trying to get involved in this. And also we have 6.5 seconds behind Gordon van den Bergen, who's running a very lonely 11th place. So therefore right now the top 10 there definitely has its actors and participants in it. And George Mattock, meanwhile, well, he's looking around the outside there, Titus de Jong. And Mattock, after that huge moment earlier on, which we did have at the old hairpin, well, right now he's trying to get himself back into contention for 12, and he's very much in that contention now, but he doesn't want to fall backwards to the battle for 14th behind, because Ludwig Sauer right now is trying to put a cork in a bottle that is constantly spraying places everywhere, and Neptune, Kennedy and Harris are all trying to capitalise on it, as Mattock there looked around the outside of de Jong, but he couldn't quite find it coming through the S's. But then they go on to lap number 14. Not many more laps remaining in this one. We do have another 3 to go, including the lap we are now on to, I do believe. Mental mathematics abiding. And here is a move from David Kennedy. Up the inside he goes of Neptune. And as he roars his way over Redgate, we can see the Neptune a little bit wide, a little bit of wheel rub there, but nothing malice and nothing malicious. A bit of a racing instant if that. And as they make their way down the hill, well, Benjamin Harris there tries to squeeze his way through, but he quickly backs out, realises his nose will be pinched off. And here comes Neptune looking around the outside. He's going to try for it. He goes to the switchback instead. Oh no, it's all gone wrong. They both go round. Oh my good lord, and how on earth Benjamin Harris went between the two of them there? Well, they've both lost places. Christopher Garros Jr. now is going to pick up all 3 for the price of 1 quarter. I can't quite believe it there. We're going to get a replay of that when we can. That was absolutely incredible for partly the right reasons, partly not the right reasons, but in the end that worked out for Benjamin Harris to a degree. Here was the on-board of that from Benjamin Harris's perspective. Let's take a look. So Neptune battling hard there with Kennedy, and in coming off the corner, I think there was a tiny tap to the rear of Kennedy's car. Harris swapped one way then the other, and the American driver did incredibly well to avoid being caught up in that. He did lose the place to Garros Jr. of course, but what he lost versus what he gained, well, I think he'll be grateful for the fact the car was not damaged in the end. But unfortunately that will put Neptune and also Kennedy a long way down the order. Neptune now down in 20th, Kennedy down in 23rd place. But looking back to your leaders then, they're on the penultimate lap of racing with a minute to go, and it's still Tomkins ahead of Hermann and Dorner. And right now, Hermann and Dorner definitely have now started to fight more and more for second. I think the rate of knots they're travelling at, they have definitely locked themselves into this battle, and we will see what is to come of the final lap. It's an 8/10 of a second gap to Tomkins. If Tomkins does make a mistake at any point, he may be reeled back in, but right now it may be the Adam Tomkins show on the top step, which means we'll have a 3rd winner in 3 races, and it'll be the first time a race has been won from pole position this season. Steff Hermann and Marcus Dorder, meanwhile, are fighting over the spoils on the 2nd and 3rd steps of the podium, with Steff Hermann trying to maintain a 100% completion record of podium finishes so far. Neil Gardner, meanwhile, well, he's in the right thick of it here with 30 seconds left on the clock as Jeff Randall goes around the outside of him. But Gardner knows that you want to be behind on the final lap of the race. You don't want to be ahead unless you've got quite the gargantuan gap, because here we go, the final lap, the white flag waves, and right now Jeff Randall holds on to 4th, but I don't know whether he'll be there at the very end, as Daniel Otuga, meanwhile, is going to spoil the Neil Gardner party here, because he's going to go around the outside, and Gardner falls back a little bit further, so Daniel Otuga here says, no Neil, I know what you're trying to do, I'm going to do you now, but I'm going to do it even better. I'll take you, and then I'll go hunting after Randall. So Otuga's been building up, Nathan Wade's behind the pair of them, and a bit further back, Remco Pleister and Marcus Byfeld, they're fighting down in towards the crane of curves, and it is going to be Pleister there defending. Byfeld right now looking around the outside, goes the switchback, and in the end, will both drivers come off okay? Byfeld gets the better run up the hill. He's going to have a lot of momentum here as Byfeld in the 105. Can he run it all the way to the inside of McLean's? Something tells me yes, he can. He's just got to get it right on the brakes and he'll get the move done. He does, but he makes a bit of a ham sandwich of it. Pleister goes around the outside. It's a lovely bit of defensive work there from Remco Pleister, and he keeps it together. But meanwhile, back to the very front, because 2 quarters to go, plus a sprint to the finish. Adam Tomkins has Hermann and Dorner close behind. They have caught up. We can see up there, Tomkins puts it in the middle of the road and says to Hermann and Dorner, no, you don't. And as they make the way off the S's, it's a drag race to line. It's only 75 metres, if that. Can Adam Tomkins hold on to take his first win of the season? The answer is yes, he can. Adam Tomkins wins from pole position ahead of Steff Hermann, and Marcus Dorner completes your podium in round number 3, with Jeff Randall holding off the attempts of Daniel Otuga to round off your top 5. Neil Garner was 6th. Nathan Wade was 7th ahead of Brian Kelly. Marcus Byfeld took home 9th place in the end ahead of Remco Pleiser. He got back ahead right at the close. Gordon van den Bergen was best the rest in 11th ahead of Titus de Jong, with George Mattock unable to pass him. Ludwig Sauer was 14th, and Christopher Gerros Jr. will complete a finish in 15th, which means he is your reverse grid pole sitter for race number 2, ahead of Benjamin Harris, and then it will be Tom Payne ahead of Frederick Neptune, who won't quite believe how it all went wrong right at the end. Klaus Biedermann and Marcel de Hink complete your top 20. And then we do have Roddy van der Meerden ahead of Simon Wareham, who you see on camera. Then it'll be David Kennedy with a frustrating end to his race after that contact with Neptune, ahead of Lee Payne and Noel Richie Robinson, who in the end, the Lime Cream machine couldn't find its way past the Payne machine. Jared Steele finished in 26th place ahead of Joshua Harley. And Ronnie Schubert in the end will be your last lead lap finisher in 28th place. We also had lap down finishes there for Peter Suapanki and Jesus Cabal, and that's how they'll all finish in round number 3 of the championship, ladies and gentlemen. But what a race. And as we do take a bit of a breather, well, that gives us just a good amount of time to take you through those races off, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So after a thrilling round number 3 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5, as brought to you on iRacing and sponsored by both Musical Money and Old Git Racing Team, it was Adam Tomkins who put himself on pole and in the end held on to take victory by 1/10 of a second over Steff Hermann. Hermann in the end had to choose between fighting with Marcus Dorner behind him and chasing down Tomkins, and he chose the former rather than the latter, and he was able to secure a second place, his second place finish of the season, his 3rd podium in the row. Marcus Dorner made it onto the podium, a brilliant job from the Austrian driver, and behind them was Jeff Randall by 6 seconds, but the Old Git Racing Team driver taking home a coveted 4th position, particularly when he had the fierce competition of Daniel Otuga firstly, who finished 5th, creeping ahead of Neil Gardner right at the end of the race, but also at Nathan Wade, who took 7th ahead of Brian Kelly. Speaking of Brian Kelly, a 2nd place start in the end could not materialise into a podium finish after that mistake early on that relegated him all the way down to the bottom end of the top 10, but the American driver did a brilliant job of making sure he was still well in the fight for a top 10 spot, and there was a further 3 seconds or so to Marcus Byfeld, where the Swede there finishing in 9th just ahead of Remco Pleiser. The Raging Turtle, a racing Dutchman in the end, couldn't quite battle his way past the Swede and had to settle for 10th, but he was ahead of Sickhead Racing's Gordon van den Bergen, who took the best of the rest of the spot in 11th place. Behind the German, it was the Dutchman from Raging Turtle Racing of Titus de Jong, with George Mattock, Ludwig Sauer and Christopher Gerros Jr. completing your top 15. And we take that top 15 and now turn it upside down, and that's how they'll start for our second race. So it will be Gerros Jr. on pole position, with Ludwig Sauer joining him on the front row. And in 16th place, sadly, where he'll start for the second and final race of the day, it will be Benjamin Harris. The 5-1 driver there missed out right at the end after avoiding what could have been a very nasty moment with both Frederick Neptune and David Kennedy, but unfortunately he lost the chance to be on pole position for the final race of the day. Tom Payne finished 4 seconds behind him in 17th, but ahead of Frederick Neptune, who held off the intentions of Klaus Biedermann at the finish, and Marcel de Hink completed your top 20. Outside the top 20, in 21st place, it was Roddy van der Meerden, ahead of Simon Wareham, with David Kennedy for Whiskey Windmill Bandit Brigade, holding on to 23rd, not where he wanted to finish, I can assure you of that. Lee Payne was 24th, ahead of Noel Richie Robinson, and then we did see your final lead lap finishers of Jared Steele, Joshua Harley, and Ronnie Schubert, who was 28th. It was a lap down to Peter Suapanki and Jesus Cabal after the instant coming out of the S's early on in the race cost them both dear, and we also did see, unfortunately, retirements for the following drivers: Paul Smithhurst, David Elliott, and James McRitchie. So 33 starters, 30 finishers, of which 28 on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, we've got one more race to come. It's just around the corner. It's round number 4, and it'll be our 30-minute feature race coming up in approximately 30 seconds or so. And as all of our drivers get set, well, in fact, I do believe we have a little bit more time before we do end up going into the gridding procedure for our second race there. We have another couple of minutes. I do apologise, but it gives us an opportunity to enjoy the spectacle that is a couple of drivers making their way around and trying to find a bit more time out there. But what can we take from race number 1 of the day? Well, we can firstly take the fact, as George Mattock makes his way around, that the slipstream around here is quite powerful, but also the fact the power of the switchback in both battling for position on the offensive and also the defensive, where we down into the old hairpin, which we saw time and time again, or alternatively going through the likes of McLean's and Coppice later on the lap. Plenty of wants to go too wide, but you've got to be smart with where you put yourself and also exactly where you cut back in behind the car in front of you or you cut ahead of it. and when it goes wrong, it can go so very, very wrong. However, for Gordon van den Bergen, he'll know that he got it absolutely right in the end after ending up doing a bit of rallycross coming up for Schwann's curve, and indeed avoiding what could have been an absolutely huge incident in the early stages of our previous race, but somehow, some way, managing to find a way to keep it on the tarmac after going to the grass, and when the number 50 driver really giving us a absolute heart in mouth moment there, and could be one of the ultimate highlights of the season. But the 50 driver here just cruising his way around right now and getting himself set up for success, no doubt about it. And a bit further behind him, we have Noel Richie Robinson, who may not be on the pace of the fastest drivers out there today. My goodness, is he having a lot of fun out there, and that's the most important thing, to have fun. And do keep in mind as well that several of these drivers, they are committed to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 on the FBF 2000 machine. It is perhaps the only car they race on the platform, and indeed that's why we have so many drivers who have got such a high propensity to it. And when you do have drivers with iRatings all the way up to the best part of upwards of 7,000, including Steff Hermann, who has an iRating just shy of 7,300, you can understand you've got plenty of drivers here who are the masters of their craft. But as we look to the scenic view, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to head to the grid, because it's time for round number 4 of the championship. So here we go then, onto the grid, and this is how they'll line up for the 30-minute feature at Donington Park in round 4 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5. Well, top 15 inversion, it is Christopher Geros Jr. who lines up on pole position, and he is joined on the front row of the grid by Ludwig Sauer. On row number 2, it will be George Mattock and Titus de Jong, with Gordon van den Bergen and Remco Pleisier making up row 3. On row 4, we have Marcus Byfield and Brian Kelly. Keep your eyes out for Kelly, a very fast driver and not in the right starting position for the pace he brings to the table. And we have Nathan Wade and Neil Garner who round off your top 10. Outside the top 10 in 11th place, best of the rest, it's Daniel Otuga ahead of Jeff Randall, with none other than Marcus Dorner and Steff Hermann on row number 7. And then completing that top 15 inversion, it'll be none other than Adam Tomkins. Starting 16th, it's Benjamin Harris, where he starts where he finished in race number 1. And on row number 9 behind, it's Tom Payne and Frederick Neptun, with Klaus Bederman and Marcel de Hint completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, well, we won't be able to do that, ladies and gentlemen, because the grid is set. We are going green flag racing. We're missing our pole sitter. The lights are going on. It's 3, it's 4, it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out, away we go for the second of our 2 races here today. And as Ludwig Sauer gets away with the opening spot on the grid vacant, well, Sauer gets a good start off the line, but will he be able to hold on versus Mattock into turn 1? The answer is Mattock is there, and Mattock goes all in the end. A little bit latency, and he slides his way red gate corner. Gordon van den Bergen now is going to be looking for his way in as well, as they all roar the way into Hollywood. For the first time of asking, the whole field comes on through, but it looks so most drivers have been able to survive the opening corner, and as they all cover down, Mattock, they're really lunging in versus Titus de Jong. So Mattock trying to get his elbows out nice and early, but this is where they're all pinch now as they come down the hill. But who's going to pinch first? Who is going to back off? It looks like Steff Hermann there's decided just to take it nice and easy right at the start of this race. I think that's a good call, to be fair, as they now make the way up the hill. And we can see they're 2 wide of Adam Tomkins, but Hermann right now seemingly struggling a little bit there. And I think Hermann's got a slowdown penalty for track limit. That's why he's losing time. There's a bit of contact. Oh, somebody's got it wrong in front. There's a lot of smoke being kicked up there. Who exactly's got it wrong? I think that's Klaus Bederman, who in the end has recovered, but I don't think he's at the epicenter of it. I think there was another driver who really was at the heart of it. Was it Jeff Randall? I think it was. I think Randall's got major damage to the car, and Randall's race may be in ruins. And meanwhile, back to the very front as the sun shines. Van den Bergen and George Mattock fighting once again as they head the way. Yes, there's contact between Van den Bergen and Mattock, and he straightens himself out. Does Van den Bergen with the help of the man he made contact with. Ludwig Sauer's there, car into the barrier. That's Neil Garner into the wall, and suddenly Mattock is trying to break away as we're down to lap number 2. And my good lord, this lap number 1 for race number 2 of the day has been absolute pandemonium. There's definitely going to be quite a few stewards' investigations after the racing today. And indeed, we've got a few replays to come of everything that's happened, but looking to what is that battle for second place, it's Kelly and Sauer together. Byfield and Van den Bergen are right behind. But here they come down the hill again for the second time of asking in this race, and right now George Mattock is going to try and bolt away as quickly as he can. If he can open up that gap, he might be able to just simply take this race and walk away with it at this point, presuming he gets it absolutely right on the pit stops. Remember, we do have the mandatory pit stop for fuel here, and that's what caught out several drivers at Brands Hatch, was the fact they put too much fuel in the car when they didn't need to. But right now we will see as Van den Bergen still fighting, still sliding over the road. I wonder whether that contact with Mattock has just upset the car's balance a little bit, because he is sliding more than he's pointing in a straight line at the moment, although Van der Bergen is keeping it together, but for how long before the car comes back to bite him? That's going to be the natural question here, but he's trying to hold on to 5th place, albeit he's almost losing it for osmosis to Daniel Otuga here, as Otuga now goes too wide with him, and in front Ludwig Sau gifting the toe to his fellow Swede as they make the way 3 wide into the braking zone here for the S's. Oh, goodness me, well, Otuga's on the inside, Sau's in the middle, and Van den Bergen on the outside. They go for the pinch, Sau's going to go deep, but Van den Bergen can't find a way back around the outside, and Daniel Otuga makes a 2-for-1 special there as they come towards the end of the second turn of the circuit. But from them, looking a bit further back, Tom Payne goes straight on. I wonder if that was aided there at all, or whether he's had to back out and just simply go to the gravel trap. But either way, when he makes his way onwards, a couple more drivers still making the way around, including Christopher Geros Jr., who suddenly finds himself in 19th place. Given the nightmare start that he had, he didn't start from pole position. He started a lot further down the grid due to a technical issue with the car, and well, in the end, he's made his way up into 19th, having started from effectively the pit lane at this point, and he's trying to bring it all back together at this moment. But from him, George Mattock now under pressure from Brian Kelly. And Kelly has caught up very quickly to Mattock, so this goes to show you that Mattock was not able to break away, and indeed Brian Kelly, the fastest driver out there at the moment. He's going to look up the inside of Mattock in towards McLean's, but that's not going to be easy as Mattock runs a bit wide. We don't see there Brian Kelly in the rear view camera because Kelly's already on the inside into Coppice Bend. That's the pace with Kelly that he's trying to bring to the field here, and well, through the turn 8 right-hander he comes, and as he makes his way down the back stretch, these two fighting side by side. That's only naturally going to invite Byfield and Otuga behind to get a little bit closer. But Steff Hermann is still fighting, as meanwhile Marcus Dorner has got damage to the car, and Dorner right now, we looks okay in the car. I can tell you one thing, the number 10 will very quickly be finding its way into the pit lane in short order, and that's not the way he's wanted it to go whatsoever as they make their way across that timeline and on to the next lap. So things finally do calm down as we go on to lap number 4, but it has been a bit of a chaotic opening couple of laps, and with Jeff Randall perhaps the biggest loser of them all in terms of all the madness that's played out, and we take a look back in time as to what happened. So this was Randall making his way up the hill in towards the McLean's. As he did so, went very late on the brakes there. Rear of the car came round, and in the end put up a big cloud of smoke, and unfortunately Klaus Biedermann could not see his way through, and for Jeff Randall it all went wrong very quickly. So this was the on-board perspective of Klaus Biedermann as he made his way up the hill, so he was a lot further back here. He won't see what's going on until about, if he does see anything about now, he'll know some smoke, and he knows at this point where's he got to go. He's got a guess, and in the end unfortunately clips the rear of Randall's parked car, and that damages and destroys the front right suspension of Biedermann's number 40, and suddenly it all has gone so very well for the pair of them, and that's why they've both had to make their way into the pits for repair work on the car. However, it does seem as though for Randall it was a tow to the pits, whereas for Biedermann he was able to crawl his way back into the pit lane. We also have plenty of offs to the likes of Ronnie Schubert there as well, and also Tom Payne, but otherwise most drivers were able to survive it or thereabouts. But coming back to the man who was meant to start on pole but in the end did not due to an issue with the car, well, here is Frederick Neptune and Gels Jr. fight each other hard. And given the near identical liveries on the cars, minus the wheel rims, I wonder if they're part of the same team. And as they make their way down the start for the straight here, onto the next lap, well, right now, will the two teammates, if they are teammates, start to work together? Will they form a bit of a partnership here? Knowing that otherwise they may be under a bit more pressure, as Roddy van der Meerden, well, he's trying to hold on there versus Simon Wareham. Hold up, that's Paul Smithhurst just parked up in the middle of the road. How on earth has Smithhurst ended up going around? I do not know, but thankfully we do have the power of a replay to explain. But we've also got something going very wrong to Marcel de Hint a lap before, so therefore got a couple more replays to come in due order. But meanwhile, 3 wide as they make the way up the hill. That's not going to look very nice, and right now Marcus Dorner is making his way around in a car that's heavily damaged. He's gliding his way around, but Dorner does need to come into the pits within a couple of laps. I believe it's 3 laps within receipt of what is the meatball flag as it's nicknamed, or the car condition flag, the orange circle with the black background. If he does not, he'll go from a car that needs to come into the pits for repair work to potentially being disqualified automatically from the race by the iRacing stewarding system. And Dorner right now, I think what he's trying to do, he's trying to survive a couple more laps, and the idea is he will push this as far as he can in order to be able to take his mandatory fuel pit stop as well. Well, it's a gamble, and to be fair to him, if he pulls this off, it could give him a lot more opportunities later on in the race. But if he doesn't come in on this one, which he doesn't, Harris does, then on the next lap he must come in, I do believe. Otherwise that car will be disqualified from the race as I understand it, although I could be wrong, that's don't quote me. But George Mattock right now, well, he's not being disqualified from the lead this race as far as he's concerned, because Brian Kelly is doing everything he can. He's huffing and puffing, but Mattock right now is refusing to be blown down there. But I think Kelly's going to go around the outside as they make the way onwards, but here comes the free wide. Daniel Otuga now gets involved. Adam Tomkins looks one way then the other. Otuga's elbowed out. Brian Kelly cuts the apex too much of Starkey's there. He's going to take a slow down, and as they make the way up the hill, this is 2x2x2. You'd think they want a rolling start procedure. No, they're not. They're all fighting here. That's Byfeld and Van den Bergen getting involved as well, and the man right at the back of this group of Van den Bergen for Sickhead Racing, he's having to play the watching game right now, but watch out for Kelly, because Kelly will now have to back off at some point. In fact, he's already burnt his slow down, so he did that a moment ago, but that's why he's let Otuga on through. But Van den Bergen are watching the rear of both Byfeld and Tomkins here, with Hermann, Placia, and also Sal close behind. And as he heads onto the brakes here, where he's got Steff Hermann trying to look around the outside of him, but that's not going to quite work for Hermann. And in the end, Van den Bergen's actually going to get the switch back slightly here as they power their way along. He's going to try and make his way around the outside here, and well, as he does so, it is getting very close, it's getting very compact, and we'll get ready to go to the brakes here. Van den Bergen right now looking all the way around the houses. Can he get it done versus both Tomkins and also Byfeld? Well, he's definitely going to get Byfeld by nose here for a brief moment, or is he? As they roar the one to lap number 7, we've got cars in the pit lane as well for their mandatory pit stops. A lot of cars coming in nice and early to try and get themselves out of the fighting pack. Brian Kelly's perhaps the biggest one. Also Marcus Dorner, we said he had to come in at the end of that lap. He did for the repair work on the car, and it was also to make sure that he doesn't need to come in again for the fuel later on. So a bit of tactical calls here, and I think right now a lot of drivers opting to get out the battling packs, recognising they're losing so much time fighting. But will that cause the heads of the drivers who remain out on the lead lap? Will it cause them to put the screw back in and realise that actually they shouldn't be fighting right now? They're only costing each other time. Well, that's only something they can decide here, but it's absolutely brilliant fighting at this Donington Park National Circuit, no question about it. But is this fighting costing drivers way too much time? We will see. As meanwhile, Otuga and Matuk continue to be side by side as they get ready to go in towards turn number 9. But as they roar the way through the Roberts S's, Otuga does take the lead off of Matuk, but this might just be temporary, and Matuk might be playing the game here, which is just to simply let him through and then come back at him a bit later on, unless now the strategic brain has definitely started to move into the frame. Well, Otuga holding on to lead then. Matuk, Tomkins, that's your top 3. Van den Bergen is 4th, and then Marcus Byfeld is your 5th runner in this group, with Remco Placia in 6th place right now, with Ludwig Sau not too far behind him. And credit where it's due to Ludwig in the fact that he's done an absolutely brilliant job to hold on to the lead group, despite the fact he is a bit of a slower driver who started further up the field due to the top 15 inversion for the grid. But sometimes drivers fall away at that point, but others do not, and Ludwig Sau putting himself in the he does not fall away camp, and he's done a great job of holding on to place here, and he could definitely be rewarded with a top 10 finish by the end of this race. But we can see here Otuga right now, and Matuk looking back up the inside, and George Matuk right now, goodness me, I can tell you one thing, he may not have had the best qualifying session, but he's going to give it everything in the race, and then give himself some grass to contend with. Tomkins on the inside, Van den Bergen on the inside, Matuk's elbowed out, and that's going to lead to Byfeld cutting up the inside of what is Matuk. Can he also get there through Van den Bergen? Yes, he can. Now Byfeld's going to be on the inside, but he won't have the toe here down towards the S's. Is going to cost him the time. We're only a third of the race in, and right now we've had so much battling here, you could build a whole highlight reel out to the open in 10 minutes alone. But coming through the right into left, Byfeld does move it to 3rd, and Van den Bergen and Matuk, they got their elbows out together, and Remco Placia decides to come in. He's caught up to that pack. It's a tactical call here from the Raging Turtle Racing team. I think this is the right call. I think they've got their driver out of that pack just before he's about to be swallowed up by it, and they know it's worth the gamble. But the big question is, where is Brian Kelly? Here he is. He's currently 18th, having taken that pit stop. Where is he now going to emerge back out? Does he clear Placia? We'll have to see. Does he clear Cabal? And still, I think he will. Placia's making his way down the pit lane. It's going to be close here, but I think Brian Kelly is going to get ahead. Yes, he is, and he is bringing Steff Hermann with him. Now, Hermann pitted a lap later, but there is the fact of the matter, which is Brian Kelly has pitted early, and the undercut is rewarding him. Now, will anybody else respond? Will the team principals and strategists on the walls for your top 5 teams, will they be thinking that Brian Kelly right now is the problem man? They need to beat him on strategy. If they don't, and then suddenly what is going to happen is that they are going to find themselves effectively coming out behind him, and Brian Kelly will put himself right back at the front of the field. If he gets it right, he may even gift himself a couple of seconds worth of time, and that is going to be worth gold in terms of how far it will put him clear. It may even enable him to run away with the race. We'll have to see, as Roddy van der Meerden meanwhile has Paul Smithhurst for close company, albeit runs out very wide there coming out of Coppice Bend, and Smithhurst is not going to waste any time getting on the inside of him here down the back stretch. He'll be too wide all the way towards the braking zone, but Van der Meyden tucks in and Smithhurst pulls back to the racing line. They're both in sync, they know exactly what's going on, and Smithhurst now takes 11th place on the road. But remember, these drivers have yet to pit, and neither one defects to the pit lane this time. Into the pits has come Ludwig Sauer. The writing's on the wall then for the number 28 driver. He's seen what's going on. Otuga, Tomkins, Beifeld, Vandenbergen and Mattock have all stayed out. But intriguingly, Mattock has now fallen back to 5th, and as we do see Vandenbergen having a big slide on entry into the old hairpin, the rear left tyre just briefly touching the grass, even for the tiniest of moments. That's what's caused the big slide. Well, I think Mattock right now has realised there's no point fighting this group. Do the fighting after the pit stop. Right now, you can't afford to fight because you're going to lose even more places if you do, and therefore everyone's getting their sensible head on. And Daniel Otuga, much like in round number 2 at Brands Hatch, the feature race there, he is now starting to take control of this race. Has he taken control of it on strategy, however? That's what we're waiting to see, because he was the driver who nailed it in terms of the amount of fuel to put in the car. He had the shortest pit stop of everybody at Brands Hatch. If he can do it again here at Donington Park, he may just be able to offset the charge of Brian Kelly on the undercut strategy, who took some extra fuel to push himself hard in clear air. Otuga completely makes ham sandwich coming out of the S's. That's not the way to go, and as he rejoins, it's 3 wide for a brief moment. Adam Tomkins will take the lead this race. Marcus Beifeld will now look to battle for the lead. Oh, that's getting very, very close. There's contact between Mattock and Wes van den Bergen, and George Mattock in the end goes up into the air. The car comes down on the suspension. It looks so it's going okay, but something doesn't look right. I think that rear right suspension, look at the tyre. Yes, the car, the suspension's collapsed and the tyre is at an angle, and George Mattock in that contact. His race has come apart for George Mattock. What was looking to be an aggressive battle for the field, in the end has all fallen apart. And here's the quick replay to see what happened. It was heading down the straight, and in the end Van den Bergen comes across there, a bit of contact, and in the end the two come back together. I think Mattock on the runoff area in the end just lost a little bit of grip, and it just caused Mattock to come back across, and in the end the two made haste into each other, and Mattock really was the worst off of the pair of them. And George Mattock right now, well, I'll tell you one thing, he'll be absolutely fuming as he crawls around on circuit, staying well clear of all the other drivers. But something tells me right now that car, if it can't make its way up the hill, is going to be towed to the pit. And right at the halfway point of this race as well. And for Mattock right now, it's not the way anybody's wanted it to go. But unfortunately for the number 17 driver, what could he do at this point other than try and get it into the pit lane, get a fast repair in, and just see what he can do from there. But your top four carry on. But Van den Bergen at the back of this one, he'll be wondering if he's got any damage on the car. Meanwhile, Peter Suapanki, he has yet to pit. He's come all the way through from 29th on the grid to 5th. However, keep in mind, because he hasn't pitted, that this 5th place is not representative of where he is actually in the entire race at the moment. But he is looking quick enough here to try and guarantee himself potentially a top 15 finish, which would be a great recovery drive after the nightmare of race number 1. We also do have into the pits Christopher Geros Jr., who started from the pit lane after being your pole sitter for this race. But unfortunately, a technical issue of the car meant he had to start from the pits. He made his way all the way up into the top 10. As he re-emerges, he puts himself right in behind David Kennedy, who in turn is chasing after Dorner and Wade. So this has worked out quite nicely for Geros Jr. He's picked up a quick pack of cars. Marcus Dorner, of course, was in the car that was heavily damaged on the opening lap, and well, Nathan Wade fighting with him here, albeit Marcus, that's not the way you go through there. My goodness, he's going to end up on the grass. Does he get it back together? The answer is not quite, without taking a further trip to the grass. I think for Marcus Dorner, he would argue there that he was squeezed up onto the curb of the crater curves by Nathan Wade. I think Wade would argue that he should have backed out. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can, but Marcus Dorner's going to lose even more places, and round number 4 of this championship really has been a nightmare round, whereas round number 3 was definitely an absolutely brilliant showing from the number 10 driver. It really has been opposite ends of the spectrum here today, and right now I think he and the team are not going to quite believe it when he gets out the car later. And here's a quick replay of what exactly happened from the onboard. So this was Dorner attacking Nathan Wade through Hollywood into Craner. Now the interesting part is, where does he put the car here? He squeezes it into a gap, which I think on reflection, once he's cooled down after the race, not saying he's a hot-tempered driver, but we all see a little bit of red mist when we're racing. I think Marcus might think to himself after that one, did I really need to poke my nose into a space that was always going to close? Well, he went for it. I think Nathan Wade never expected him to go for it, and that will be the two stories between the two of them. And, well, we'll wait and see, because now he's fallen back behind Cabal and Gardner, but he's still got more racing to come. Another 13 minutes plus a final lap to go. Never say never, to be fair, and there even was the risk of some slight rain in the forecast earlier on today. Albeit a very low chance of it arriving here, but if it does arrive, something that could turn things on its head, because everyone is on the slick tyre right now, I can assure you, but we could suddenly see our drivers have to make it their way to the wets or gamble being on the slick tyre all the way to the very end. However, we will see, because right now, as far as we're aware, everyone is on a slick tyre, and we just had that confirmed to us, and nobody is anticipating the rain out there. But meanwhile, they say when it rains it pours, but not so for Adam Tomkins. When it rains for him, it is raining supreme, and right now the 29 driver leads this race, albeit by 2.5 tenths over Marcus Beifeld, with Otuga and Van den Bergen tucked in behind. But this top four right now, they've really stopped fighting since the last 4 laps. And the idea, I think, being here that right now they've all realised the big threat that is posed by Brian Kelly, as Kelly right now moves up to 9th with Peter Suapanki pitting, and with the fin out the way, Kelly's next target will be Steff Hermann. In fact, I believe Hermann's got ahead of Kelly, and the two of them are working together. So their target will be Paul Smithhurst, who is only a second up the road from them. The idea is they want to get close enough to Smithhurst to pass him, but hopefully they will see him. In fact, he's 8 seconds up the road down, misreading my timing tower. But the point being that Smithhurst is the first driver they'll encounter who is yet to pit, and they want to encounter him on the road if they can. But as our top four make the way back towards us now, as I count my commentary booth window, you can see that Tomkins and Beifeld pushing each other along, albeit bump drafting isn't possible in these SBF 2000 machines. It's way too risky, and open wheelers do not bump draft due to all the air on the cars. They may not be Formula 1 machines, but I can tell you those little wings, both on the front and rear, they are worth a lot, not just in terms of money, but also downforce and time generated. And right now, nobody wants to pick up any damage in the car, because a clean car is worth a lot more than one that has a few bumps in the paintwork. But as Tomkins makes his way onto a 15th lap, no sign of any of the top four making their way into the pitch yet. They're all waiting to see how far they can go. But further back, we've got some fighting going on here for 24th. This is Jared Steele and Joshua Harley. Harley is the attacker as he looks to try and cut the inside there into McLean's. Steele just holds his ground. And for Jared Steele, it's a bit of frustrating welcoming to the series at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit a week ago. Things did not quite come together, particularly after a big shunt in race number 1. Joshua Harley right now, well, he's fallen back a little bit there. I think his eagerness to make the move into McLean's has rewarded him with a little bit of drop in time as he's made his way out of Coppice. But still, plenty more time in this race. They've both pitted, so they're both right now on their final stint, and it's going to be about who can keep it together for the remaining 11 minutes or so. Ronnie Schubert's into the pit lane. I believe that is for more repair work on the car. Schubert's not having a good day in the office, unfortunately. But as we do see Harley trying to follow the wheel tracks of Steele all the way on to the next lap. Well, from them, we look back to the very front. And here are your leaders about to complete the lap that Steele and Harley have gone on to. And, well, right now, your top four all stay out once again. But they are also starting to find some lap down traffic in front of them. And the first cars they're going to bump into will be your 28th place runner of Noel Richie Robinson and Klaus Biederman in front of him. It could be a good time here if you're Adam Tomkins to really be thinking about pitting soon, because if you catch up to these cars, yes, you gain a slipstream. There's no question about that. But do these drivers respect the blue flags the way you want them to? And also, it's not character assassination, but do you catch them at a convenient time? That is the bigger thought process here. If you catch a driver at the right time around here, it can be worth as much time as running behind another car in the slipstream. However, you've got to time it right, and right now, they won't be closing up to them until the next lap. Tomkins knows that every second, every tenth, every hundredth, every thousandth is precious here when you do have drivers on an undercut strategy who are now into 7th and 8th place respectively. Hermann and Kelly are together, and Remco Bleisier is only 4 seconds behind, bringing Ludwig Sauer with them. So therefore, some strategic calls need to be made, and they need to be made very soon. Who is going to wilt in this group first? Who will recognise the pressure that sits in front of them and is a long way behind them, but is an ever-present threat? We will see as Joshua Harley's just made his way into the pit lane. Here comes Adam Tomkins then. And as he makes one down, does not. None of them do. They all stay out again. This may not be the right call, in my opinion, but they can prove me wrong, to be fair. I've been wrong on many a strategy call in my commentary career. And right now for Adam Tomkins, well, at some point in this lap, he is going to catch up to the back of Richie Robinson. And it is, where will he catch him? And will it work out to his advantage? We're about to find out. But meanwhile, Brian Kelly, he's behind Steff Hermann. These two still pushing each other to the limit. And And as they make their way onwards, we look back to David Kennedy, Nathan Wade and Christopher Garros Jr. And these three together right now, all pushing each other to the limit as Nathan Wade then mounting the curbs, pushing it very hard, and Garros Jr. gets it wrong, runs out wide, and Neil Garner's going to pick up the place there, no doubt about it. And that's going to be an opportunity that he won't want to waste, as Garner's going to be on the outside. Garros Jr. has to tuck back in the end. He can't fight it to the apex of Redgate, and Marcus Dorner and Jesus Cabal, they're not too far behind either, as their fighting carries on. But back to the front of the field, and as we can see, they have found their way past none other than what is Richie Robinson, so they've been able to clear him quite quickly. I believe that was in the run out to the old hairpin, and Richie Robinson pulled aside from what I'm hearing in my ears, so they haven't lost the time. That's worked out. Now the next target up will be Klaus Biedermann. Do they have a good run past him? Biedermann's a little bit further up the road. He is 3 seconds away and counting. So right now, in terms of the number of laps it would take them to catch Biedermann, it would take them another 2 laps before they're starting to fill the slipstream. This is actually now working out a bit for Tomkins, I felt. Remember, they do have to pit. They cannot get away with a no-stop strategy in this race. They have to come in, even if they think they can no-stop it, they have to make a quick splash and dash, or essentially they have to come into the pit, be stationary for what would be the best part of a second, and then make the way on out. As Titus de Jong and Paul Smithers come in, so they decide they can't go any further. Brian Kelly sets the fastest lap of the race now, a 17.36, aided a bit by the slipstream of Steff Hermann, but the point is, these guys are gaining at 4 to 5 tenths a lap over the last couple of laps. They are going faster and faster. It is looking as though here right now, the undercut strategy is becoming ever more of a threat for Hermann and Kelly. Can they leap ahead of Tomkins, Byfoot, Otuga and Van den Bergen? Will they find themselves in amongst it, or will they fall a bit short? Well, big slide wide there from Hermann, but keeps within track limits thereabouts, and Kelly right now will be saying under his visor, Steff, do not make an error. We're almost there, but as they head up the hill, the pressure right now is building to a crescendo here, and well, those two are working together for now, but understandably within the next 5 minutes they're going to go from being friends to enemies. Into the pits comes Tomkins, and he ducks in immediately, so does Otuga. Meanwhile, Byfoot and Van den Bergen, they stay out, so they split strategies inside the top 4. This is going to make it even more intriguing. Byfoot and Van den Bergen definitely think they saved enough fuel to do a 19th lap. And we saw at Brands Hatch the fact the fuel tank does go practically the best part of 25 to 26 minutes of race distance if you save enough fuel. Tomkins makes it out the pit lane. It's a relatively quick stop, one of the faster stops out there. The same for Otuga. It tucks right back in behind. Where is Hermann? Where is Kelly? Here they are. How close are they? It's going to be very close here. I don't think they're going to have done enough. However, I think Hermann and Kelly have done it on the leapfrog. They have undercut, and even for Tomkins and Otuga, they've reacted too slowly. Or have they? The gap is 1.25 seconds as they get up to speed coming out of Redgate Corner. They are going to pick up a distant toe here, but is the toe that Kelly's getting off the back of Hermann enough to break away from Tomkins? It might just be Adam Tomkins right now. Every lap from this point onwards until he gets to within a second of the 2 cars in front of him has got to be a qualifying lap. He's got to go for the fastest laps he's ever driven around Donington Park, as otherwise they will lose Hermann and Kelly. And right now, the number 11 and 3-2-1 you see at the foreground of your camera for a brief moment, those are the 2 cars that we believe might be leading this race when the final pit stops are done. We've only got 2 more pit stops to come, and they're for Marcus Byfeld and also Van den Bergen, but Byfeld goes another lap. He's pushing this to the absolute limit. Van den Bergen comes on in, so Van den Bergen decides he can't stay out there any longer, whether it's fuel limitation or worries about what's going on, and you can see it in the rear of the picture making its way down the back stretch. These are the 2 drives, Hermann and Kelly, who right now seem to have got this right on strategy. The only thing that Marcus Byfeld might be thinking at this point is if he stays out long enough, everybody else is going to fight. He can overcut everybody by just simply not fighting anybody. It is a valid approach, but how will it work out? We will see, because here comes Van den Bergen down the pit lane, and whereas he makes his way out, he makes his way out just behind Tomkins and Otuga. So that shows you the fact that he has been able to match them on the strategy with the overcut, but he's not been able to get any closer to Hermann and Kelly. So 1 driver's left to pit, but when will Marcus Byfeld pit? He hasn't got long left to do so. Remco Pleiser, meanwhile, he holds on to 7th place with Ludwig Sauer right behind him. These 2 right now pushing onwards. They're trying to get into that top 5 fight, but it's easier said than done. And then Garros Jr. right now is bringing a whole host of cars with him in the fight for 9th through to 13th place. Nathan Wade is your 10th place man ahead. David Kennedy with Marcus Dorner, Jesus Cabal in this. And you've got Titus de Jong and Paul Smithers not too far behind. But from them, we come back to your leader. Here is Marcus Byveld. And at long last, he does give up the fight out on circuit. He decides to come on in as he makes his way down, nails the pit limiter there right now. Well, as he crawls well on, this is going to feel like the longest pit stop of his life. Has he done enough to get out ahead of Hermann and Kelly? He'll hope so. He'll be begging. He'll be hoping he can put in the bare minimum amount of fuel. Indeed, it is an incredibly quick pit stop there as I stumble over my words for Marcus Byfeld. 7 seconds, and he does get up to speed here for Marcus Byfeld. He's pulled an absolute blinder, but is it enough to be clear of Hermann and Kelly? The answer is yes, it is for now. 2 seconds is the gap, and Marcus Byfeld has pulled off absolute miracle here on strategy. Has he got enough fuel to get to the end? If he hasn't, this is going to be heartbreak. But right now, the 105 driver, if he's done this, he has thrown everybody for a loop. He's fooled everybody with the overcut. But Steff Hermann and Brian Kelly will look at this now, and they've got to make a call, the pair of them. They won't be talking to each other, of course. They're part of 2 different teams. They won't be on comms, but both drivers here need to come to a mutual decision. Do they chase down Byfeld? Do they work together and see if they can close that gap down, or do they now turn the fight into the fight for second place? Tomkins, Otuga and Van den Bergen are only 1.3 seconds back, and they are getting closer. Otuga has recently set the fastest lap of the race. Tomkins is matching Kelly and Hermann for pace. Therefore, the shoe is now on the other foot. The undercutters are now find themselves being the hunted rather than the hunters. Meanwhile, your leader of Marcus Byfeld, he is maintaining that lead at 2 seconds. He's trying to hold on. He's got 2 more laps to go as he makes his way through the S's for the 21st time. He'll do it a 22nd and a 23rd time here at Donington Park. But right now, for Byfeld, it's all about holding on for that a little bit longer and making sure the fuel tank can go the distance. Hermann and Kelly then follow on behind. Then it's the freeway fight of Tomkins, Otuga and Van den Bergen. And then a further 4 seconds back, you have Placier and Sauer, who would love to get involved amongst the top 6, but right now I think the thought process will be the fight for 7th takes priority, and it's Garros Jr. ahead of Wade, Kennedy, Dorn and Cabal in this long run. And unfortunately you do see George Mattock at the back of it, but he is a lap down. He won't be allowed to fight in this battle without incurring the wrath of the stewards as Wade looks up the inside there at Garros Jr. He can't quite find it initially. He has to wait a little bit longer, but you can definitely see his intentions as he looks one side and the other. David Kennedy covers off Marcus Dorner, and Jesus Cabal is getting closer as well. Peter Suapanki, he's in 15th, just getting ahead of Paul Smithhurst there, out of Redgate corner. So right now, Suapanki, we did say he might be in contention for a top 15 finish, and that's exactly what he's going for here as they make the way down for the old hairpin. But Smithhurst is close, and he's trying to get back into the fight as we jump on board with your number 77. It's the battle of the sevens here, the 777 versus the 777. Right now the privateer looking one way then the other, can't find a way in as we've got black flags for both Wade and also I believe Dorner. That will be for instant point, and therefore that will be a drive-through penalty for them that they'll have to serve when 3 laps are being awarded. That's a big surprise, that's a shock to the system for many, but Smithhurst carries on here with Suapanki, will ride on board all the way down towards the S's, and as we do, well, here comes Smithhurst looking up the inside. It's going to be a classic move here under braking surely. What can Suapanki do to respond? And the answer is nothing yet. He'll wait on that final lap. But speaking of that final lap, here is Marcus Byfeld. He's gone onto it. Lead is now 2.4 seconds as he makes his way on through. Marcus Dorner's into the pit lane, by the way, to serve what will be that drive-through penalty. Nathan Wade has stayed out. He'll take it as a post-race time penalty, so he will have at least 30 seconds added onto his final race time, so expect him to be demoted down the order. But right now, the focus, Steff Hermann, Brian Kelly. They've got Adam Tomkins and Daniel Otuga getting closer, and Gordon Van den Bergen has slipped away slightly. He's not quite close enough to get involved here. But right now, the fight for 2nd through to 5th is taking priority inside that top 5, and your leader is just trying to run away for a little bit longer. But as they all make the way out of Coppice Bend, well, right now, Hermann and Kelly seem set for the podium, but for the very top step, here comes Marcus Byfeld, and what a surprise he pulled on everyone. Hermann started 7th, he's been fuel saving, whereas everyone else has been fighting. But somehow, some way, he's been able to get himself as well involved as well in all the battles, and through it all, he overcut the field, and Marcus Byfeld, with the shortest pit stop here today, takes victory in round number 4 of the championship ahead of Steff Hermann, who finishes runner-up ahead of Brian Kelly. Then it will be Adam Tomkins in 4th ahead of Daniel Otuga 5th. Gordon Van den Bergen will take 6th place, and then it will be Remco Placier who takes 7th just ahead of Ludwig Sauer in their brilliant battle for 7th and 8th place. Then it will be Christopher Garros Jr. who will come home in 9th just ahead of Jesus Cabal, who takes the place of Nathan Wade, who comes into the pits to serve his stop-and-go where his drive-through penalty. Jesus Cabal there in 10th ahead of Titus de Jong, and then we will see best of the rest gradually. I believe it'll be Wade for now ahead of Paul Smithhurst, with Peter Suapanki in 14th place ahead of David Kennedy. Simon Wareham will come on home in 16th place ahead of Frederick Neptune and Tom Payne. And then we'll have Roddy van der Meijden in 19th place, ahead of David Elliott, who will complete your top 20. Neil Gardner will bring on home a rather frustrating 21st place, ahead of Benjamin Harris. And then it will be Joshua Harley ahead of Marcel de Hint and Klaus Biedermann, who will round off your top 25. Jared Still will take home at 26th place when all is said and done, head of Marcus Dorner. And well, there is Dorner coming on through right now, having served that drive-through penalty. That's the damage it's done to his race. And no, Richie Robinson in the end will be your last lead lap finisher in 28th with a solid drive from the 696 driver. And whilst he's not been on the pace, his consistency and ability to make sure he doesn't end up off track has been one to admire. A lap down, we did have George Mattock, and that's how the race has wrapped up, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Randall a lap down as well, and 2 laps down to none other than Lee Payne. But goodness me, what a race. And as things do calm down, let's take a look to the scenic view, and with it, the provisional results subject to any stewards' inquiries. With round number 3 of the championship here at Donington Park was all about a smooth start and some close-knit battles. Round number 4 threw the script out the window and saw plenty of batting on the open lap and a huge amount of strategic thought going into the race, but it was a masterclass in the end from the Swede of Marcus Byford, who took victory here in round number 4 of the championship, ahead of Steff Hermann by 2.258 seconds. In the end, the 105 being able to overcut and the shortest pit stop as well of everybody at 7.12 seconds stationary. He definitely saved the fuel where others did not. Hermann in the end had to settle for second, but he worked well with Brian Kelly to make sure the pair of them could undercut the rest of the fighting field inside the top 10, and they were your podium finishers. And behind the American Kelly was Adam Tomkins, who took 4th, not quite able to back up his win from race number 1. However, we now have 4 different winners in 4 races, which is great to see, and Adam Tomkins will still hold the accolade thus far this season of being the only driver to convert a pole position into a race win in round 3. He was ahead of Daniel Otuga, who in the end, despite his ability to stay nice and close, Adam Tomkins could not quite save the fuel he needed to pull off another masterclass of strategy, and he had to take the final spot inside the top 5, but Gordon van den Bergen finishing 6th just behind for Sickhead Racing. It was then a further 6.5 seconds to Remco Placier, the Raging Turtle racing driver, who battled hard with his fellow countryman at Ludwig Sau for 7th place, and then Christopher Geras Jr. took 9th. In the end, having not started on pole, having started from the pit lane, to finish in 9th place was a very commendable effort. Jesus Cabal took 10th place, the Spaniard, in the end, picking up some places where it all went wrong for the likes of Nathan Wade, and also for none other than what was Marcus Dorner. But what we also did see there in best rest position at length was Titus de Jong for Raging Turtle Racing, head of Paul Smithhurst, the privateer, and then Albeit Racing Team's Peter Soapanki came all the way through the field to finish 13th with a little bit of smarts and strategy. Behind the fin was the Scotsman of David Kennedy for Whiskey Wimble Bandit Brigade, and a better race 2 today, ahead of Simon Wareham, who round off your top 15. There's Frederick Nipton ahead of Tom Payne, with David Elliott, Neil Gardner and Benjamin Harris completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, we did see in 21st Joshua Harley ahead of Marcel de Hint, with Klaus Biedermann in 23rd after that big shunt with Jeff Randall in the opening lap, and then Nathan Wade demoted to 24th as a result of the time penalty after the race, but ahead of Jared Steele, with Marcus Dorner, Noel Richie Robinson and Roddy van der Meijden completing your top 28 finishers. They were all on the lead lap, and it was a lap down to both George Mattock and also to Jeff Randall, and credit where it's due to George Mattock for getting stuck into the fight for that contact with Gordon van den Bergen into Redgate corner, so I'm going to have to come into the pits with a damaged suspension. The Old Git Racing team driver Jeff Randall had it all go wrong, of course, at McLean's, but in the end, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, and he opted to finish with his pride on a high. And outside the top 30, 2 laps down, it was Lee Payne, with retirement sadly for Ronnie Schubert and also James McRitchie. So 33 starters, 31 finishers, and we're, ladies and gentlemen, 28 on the lead lap. But that brings all of our racing to a close here today at the absolutely brilliant Donington Park National Circuit. However, this doesn't bring our broadcast to a close, because coming up in approximately what will be 5 minutes time, we'll be back for post-round interviews with our drivers. So don't go anywhere. You want to miss hearing their thoughts on what have been 2 absolutely titanic races today, and we will see you very shortly for those interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our first post-round interview of the evening, and joining me in the interview room is none other than Adam Tomkins. Good evening to you, Adam, and well, what a pair of races, and what a performance from yourself today. Back-to-back pole positions following Brands Hatch, and here taking your first win of the season. I mean, you must be pleased with how things have gone at Donington Park.
Yeah, very well. Pretty happy with the result. I think I could have potentially got at least second in the second race. I think I overfueled again slightly in the pit stop late race at the race at Brands Hatch. No, I'm not too displeased with the result. Pretty consistent result so far, like you say. So yeah, looking forward to Alton Park, my home circuit as well. Fair play to everyone, kept keeping it clean as well at the front. I think it was a bit of fighting going on behind us, but at the front it was pretty clean and pretty smart. So yeah, good racing all around.
100%. And before we went racing, of course, qualifying session, today we had our 3-lap close session, a bit more of a traditional, the fastest lap counts the most compared to the average session that we did see all the way back at Brands Hatch. But whether it's a 3-lap average or 3-lap close, you seem to be the man to beat on pole laps at the moment. How was it in qualifying?
Yeah, the track conditions were pretty easy to custom to. I find that the cooler, not too hot tracks seem to adjust to quite well. Get the rear of the car around a bit and put the foot down so the back end sticks out a bit, and it seems to be fine. Stick to the track. That's the beauty of skip barge. You get a bit of slip angle with it. Yeah, I think it's just consistency. Qualifying's always been my main really, especially in real racing when I was a teenager back in the days. So yeah, it's just consistency really. You can get up to speed with the tyres on this car very quickly, and yeah, quite lucky to have that opportunity to do that. And yeah, plus the local tracks, national circuits. So it'll definitely get more difficult as the season goes on. But yeah, pretty happy with how qualifying's gone so far.
Well, that's absolutely great to hear. And going into the race itself then, I mean, just take us through from your perspective, starting on pole has its advantages, but also given how these cars pick up a lot of speed in the tyre for one another, I can imagine being the pole sitter and the leader is a bit of a double-edged sword in a way.
Yeah, especially when you have to carry some of the pack as well. People in race 2 I could see fuel saved quite a lot, particularly the race winner. Jumped quite a pit in front of us as we came out of the pits. But you played the right strategy in the end. So yeah, it's quite a difficult game of whether to play cat and mouse, or if you feel like you've got the fastest car on the grid, take the lead and just hope that not many people underfuel. But yeah, it's just a bit of a catch-22. But I'd rather be at the front as long as possible for the first in before a pit, rather than pitting too early in case there's traffic. So yeah, difficult game to play.
Well, a difficult game to play, but in the sprint race, we did see you in the end command the lead when it mattered most all the way to the finish. So our first win on the board. Then going into the feature race, of course, we saw you start 15th place. You very quickly made your way through, although I can imagine it was a bit of a hairy opening lap. We saw plenty of side-by-sides, and poor Jeff Randall ended up being turned at McLean's. Where did you find yourself in all of it on that opening lap?
I was sitting very patiently, to be honest, probably too patiently. I think I lost a couple of spots by being too patient, especially in the chicane and McLean's, like you said. No, I just tried to avoid as many incidents as possible, take it to the inside line as much as possible. You've just got to have good peripheral vision into corners like the last corner, the chicane. If you can see something's about to go wrong, you need to, commit to that position of where you want the car to go. For example, on the exit of the last corner, if you stick to the inside as hard as possible, the chances are you're going to avoid any crashes or anything, because most of the crashes take place on the exit of that corner onto the grass. So yeah, it's more of an experience thing, really. You can't really teach it. It's just through seeing previous races and in the real world as well, where incidents tend to happen. You just try to take the line where you think it's going to be free.
Well, definitely drawing on that real-life racing experience, as you've mentioned. And with regards to strategy, we have seen the overcut and the undercut quite powerful. Yourself and also none other than Daniel Otuga in the end opted to go for quite a sizable overcut. Was that what you always planned, or was that perhaps forced a little bit by the work of Steff Hermann and Brian Kelly, who pitted much earlier by comparison? In fact, about 12 laps earlier than yourself.
Yeah, I think me and Dan played the same strategy as Brands. We tried to avoid as much back markers and slower drivers out on the offence. if we pitted too early. So that was a bit of a worry in case we did pit early and caught up the back. But we actually, I don't know if it was picked up on the stream, but me and Dan actually hit each other in the pits. I went slightly too early into the pits and he went slightly too late. And I got flustered and overfueled by that because of it. So that cost me at least a second, which is a bit frustrating. But yeah, I felt bad on Dan really because I think me and him could have won the race or at least come second. So yeah, it is what it is. It's a very difficult race too, especially come, so far behind. And a bit of luck involved, I think, as well in terms of fuel.
Well, very unfortunate. We didn't quite catch the contact between the two of you in the pit lane, so that helps explain why there was a bit of a gap or the notable shift of the undercut versus the overcut. But still, fourth place finish added to your win in the sprint race. A huge haul of points. It does mean you head into the next round as one of our major championship contenders. And next up on the list, of course, is Donington Park. What can we expect from you for rounds 5 and 6?
I'm going out all to win in this race because it's my local track. I've walked around it plenty of times, and yeah, I feel like we've got good pace here, particularly in the international. I think it's without Britons, isn't it? Really, really good track. Probably the best British track for me, without sounding too biased, given that I'm local. Yeah, I'm expecting to get the win. I'll be very disappointed if I don't in race 1, and then race 2 is going to be really tricky, especially with being such a narrow track and so much traffic in the way if I do win the first race. So yeah, it'll be interesting. There'll be a lot of chaos.
All fair play. Well, we look forward to seeing you out on your local circuit as of next week, and we'll hold you to it in terms of chasing that win in the opening race at least. But just before we do let you go, Adam, with 2025 about to close, I'd normally at this point ask the question, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to? But New Year's is around the corner. Have you set yourself any sim racing New Year's resolutions for 2026?
That's a good question. I've not actually set any. It's starting to be a bit boring. I can't say be faster, can I? Because that just sounds absolutely cliche. I'm trying to think of a. I'm trying to think of a good one. Learn more tracks. I don't know enough. As the season goes on, like I said before, there's a lot of tracks I've never raced at or even touched before. So yeah, I need to expand my dictionary of tracks that I know because they're quite limited. So yeah, instead of doing the same circuits over and again, I need to start learning new ones and practice in the wet as well. That's another thing I need to do.
Oh, fair play. Well, plenty of practice and plenty of new tracks. I definitely think that's a great way to kick off 2026 by expanding your knowledge and your vocabulary of the circuit. But with that, Adam, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me in the interview room. Congratulations on dominating qualifying thus far this season and taking your first win of the season as well. We'll see you at Donington Park in a week's time. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
And you and everyone watching, thanks. See you now.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Tomkins, a very happy number 29 driver today. Pleased with how he's performed, particularly in qualifying, and find that things came together very nicely and that he's been able to really maximise the use of the slip angle of his machine in order to deliver those times. Interesting in the sprint there, really talking about the dichotomy of being on pole and the fact he prefers to be at the front and leading the way rather than being the car behind, and that really did embed with the approach he took in the end in order to take the victory in the sprint. In the feature race, however, really talking about there taking it quite easy on open lap, regretting perhaps that he took it so easy, albeit it worked out well. What he found in the end as well was he had lost a bit of time, and then that subsequent contact between himself and Daniel Otuga in the pit lane that we didn't capture on the broadcast, well, that explains why they lost about a second to a second and a half of time in the pits, and that was the delta in the end. So a bit of a frustrating fourth place in the feature, but to be fair for Adam Tomkins, next up is his home circuit, and he's going for gold there, and we'll have to see where we can add at least one more win to his bank account. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. We'll be back in approximately 30 seconds for our next interviewee. And now, ladies and gentlemen, joining me in the interview room is none other than Brian Kelly, who joins me now. Good evening, or should I say good afternoon to you, Brian, because you're hail from the US of A. What a day from yourself. An absolutely do-or-die qualifying lap to put yourself second on the grid. A sprint race that I think slipped away from you was a bit frustrating, but a great recovery to be on the podium in the feature. You must be happy with the end result.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, especially with that heat race, but it did set me up well for the feature. Yeah, I think I just locked the tires. I haven't been driving the Skippy much recently, so cold tires caught me out. Did what I could with that heat race, but yeah, I feel really happy with how the feature went. Definitely missed the pit pit box when on that pit stop, so that was a little embarrassing. But overall, it went pretty good.
Well, a great effort from yourself, no doubt about it. And let's take it from the top in terms of qualifying. I mean, second in the end, close to pole position. It looked quick out there. Were you happy with your qualifying lap, or did you think to yourself, darn it, I should have been on pole?
I was watching Adam in the practice, and he was pretty consistently faster than me. So I was really 2 was my goal, and then if I got pole, it would just be, I would be really happy with that. But I was expecting second, if at the best.
Well, you nailed the best possible result that you were targeting. And then going into race number 1, we saw in the early stages what was a good start for yourself, fighting hard with Tomkins, but very quickly you fell all the way down to at the bottom end of the top 10. What happened?
Yeah, so that was me just locking the rears going into the chicane, and thankfully I didn't take anyone out. That would have really frustrated me if I ended somebody else's race. So thankfully it was just my embarrassment, and I think I ended up behind the train that had Neil and Jeff and Daniel in it. So they're hard racers. They know how to defend. So unfortunately, I couldn't really make much progress there. So, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, it did look great amount of fun from yourself. And then going into the feature race. Now, a lot of strategy involved in this one. We saw yourself and Steff Hermann opt to go for the undercut strategy. Was that always your plan, or did you have to improvise?
Yeah, so I got near the front right away, and I saw how hard the battling was, and I saw Daniel made it to third, and he was in our draft, and so I just figured this could end up being a train that fights. I want to be out of it, so I pitted early. Once I saw Steff come in, I just kind of wanted to put in clean laps with him. I think we each made a mistake here or there, but I just knew if people were battling in the big train, and we kept it clean, we would probably be near the front.
Well, it's definitely the way it worked out. And as time went on, we saw the two of you continue to work together, and the leaders seemed to refuse to pit. But eventually they did. You very quickly then found yourselves in second and third. But unfortunately, one driver didn't quite follow the script. It was none other than Marcus Byford, who came out as the leader after going the best part of what was 27 minutes without a pit stop, or 20 laps. I have to ask, I hate to ask this, did your heart sink a little bit there, or did you expect that perhaps one would be able to sneak ahead of you guys?
Yeah, I really wasn't sure where we were going to be for the majority of the race. I knew, like, I've driven with Steff before, and he's fast, so I knew we would be near the front. I did look after the race, and it looks like Marcus, he had a pit stop that was 3 seconds faster than everyone else, so he must have been fuel saving throughout the race to make that happen, but that really smart strategy move from Marcus.
Well, he may have had the smarts and strategy, but to be fair, you weren't too far behind, whether it was on pace or strategy today. A great set of performances from yourself. And looking ahead now to our next round, we head to Alton Park for rounds 5 or 6. Well, 5 and 6, I should say, not all. We've got both of them there. How do you fancy your chances?
I love Alton Park. I didn't look at what configuration we were in, but that's going to be a really fun race. I'm not sure if there's going to be any rain in that one. It'll be interesting if there is, but I think that race is going to be a fun one. It's just going to have a bit of a chaotic pit entry and exit there, so that one will be interesting to see what strategy is best.
Oh, fair play. And we look forward to seeing what strategy you can implement there and how much fun you can take from Alton Park on the international out. I do believe it's without the Hislop chicane as well, so therefore it'll be a bit quicker over the hilltop. Is that a pleasant thought to you, or is that something that perhaps you want both chicanes on the circuit?
I tend to be a little bit too fast into some chicanes, so I've had quite a few races ended by me just clipping a tire. So one less chicane is better for me. I'm happy to hear that.
Oh, fair play. And just before I do let you go, Brian, with the theme of 2026 being just around the corner, I do have to ask, have you set yourself any New Year's resolutions in the sim racing frontier for 2026?
I was just thinking about this before. I need to really work on making overtakes, judging when to when to battle versus when to sit back and just kind of let the race play out. I think that kind of bit me in today's race in the heat. I was not able to judge one best to overtake. That's something that I need to work on in the next year.
Well, there's always plenty of cause for improvement, no matter how high in the ranks you go, and it's good to hear that you've already thought about what you want to improve. With that, Brian, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me in the interview room. A great performance from yourself, whether it's in qualifying or the races. Shame about the sprint, but you made up for it in the feature, and we'll see you at Alton Park to see whether you can go even further and make your way to the top step of the podium. Until then, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there from Brian Kelly, ladies and gentlemen, a very happy driver today. The privateer demonstrating his prowess behind the wheel. And from the outset, really setting his goals quite clear, which was first in qualifying, be second only to the man who took pole, Adam Tomkins. He did exactly that. In the sprint, unfortunately, it didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to. A mistake of his own, that lock-up early on, cost him dear. He openly admitted the fact it was a mistake he made and he had to recover. But because he got onto the back of such a long train of cars that are all reliant on the slipstream off each other, he couldn't make the progress he wanted. So it was to the feature race. And in the end, all the battling going on, he decided, right, pull the plug on it early, get out of the fighting field. And he found himself working with a man who you can see exchanging places on screen with him right now, Steff Hermann. They opted to work together, and in the end, he was able to finish on the third step of the podium. A little bit gutted, perhaps, not to be fighting for the win in the very end, but to be fair, happy with how he turned things around. And when he goes to Alton Park, he's excited for what lies in store there. With the absence of other chicanes, making sure there's one less place perhaps for him to go a little bit too eagerly into a braking zone. But joking aside, going into next year, Brian Kelly looking to improve, particularly on his close racecraft, and we look forward to seeing how he can carry that momentum forward in what will be the northwest English countryside in a week's time. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not done there. More interviews to come, and we will be back very shortly for our third interview of the night. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to a third interview, and it's going to be with none other than Jeff Randall, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Jeff, and well, what a day of two halves from yourself. A qualifying session and a sprint to be remembered, and a feature race in a way to be remembered, but not for the right reasons. Are you smiling or are you frowning now, good sir?
I'm grinning. I'm grinning from ear to ear because it was a great night's racing for everyone. Yeah, I was disappointed for myself for race 2 because there was a gap up the inside of Daniel, and I went for it, but rookie error. I just hadn't accounted for how slippery the tyres still were. So yeah, that was pretty disappointing, to be honest. But yeah, race 1 and the qualifying was all good fun.
Well, we'll focus more on the positives as we just get the replay footage at the moment of it all going wrong for yourself in race number 2. And apologies for that.
Don't focus too hard on that.
Well, we have to focus on that for a brief moment, but talking around it, let's talk about qualifying. 6th place on the starting order in the end. Change up of format tonight. We've gone to the 3-lap closed format, aka your best lap matters. How did you find it out there? Was it a bit of a culture shift after the 3-lap average from Brands Hatch?
Yeah, I mean, after the don't look at the screen now. Everyone look away, please. Thank you. Okay, and still look away. Okay, now you can look back. The 3 laps average was a bit of a cock up in the first place because we'd had it down that it was actually going to be the 2 fastest laps averaged, but it turned out the 3 laps averaged. So it caught a few people out, but I think the 3 laps fastest lap, everyone's kind of used to that in the official situation. All right, it's 2 laps in officials, but you just know that you've got to do your quickest and try and keep it consistent. You watch my Skippy trying to wiggle its way back to the pits. I had to take a tow in the end. It just wouldn't. It lost all drive. But yeah, to finish 6th, I think in quali, I was pleased with that because there's some great guys here. So to finish in P6 on quali. That was a good effort.
Oh, 100%. An absolutely solid effort from yourself. And when we did make away racing, first race of the day, 20 minutes, full-on action, no doubt about it. We saw the top three gradually creep away, but then there was the absolute madness for fourth all the way through to 13th, and you found yourself right at the head of it. What's it like being the head car in what is a 10-car pack at Donington Park?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but if you ever tow a caravan and you're down in Dorset or in Cornwall or something like that, you look in your rearview mirror and you see just a huge queue of cars behind you. I was wondering if I had a caravan attached to the back of a skippy because it felt like I was possibly holding everyone up. But I think the pace was actually okay, and it was some good racing, I think, with Neil and with Daniel. It was pretty intense. But it was excellent racing in race one. Really, really enjoyed that. And holding on to P4, I was made up with that. Really happy.
Oh, you deserve to be. Absolutely fantastic fighting. And just off the back of that as well, were there any points on the circuit where you felt as though you could make your proverbial skippy caravan wider, or you naturally felt you could just stop everybody's progress, versus other points where actually you had to be really on your toes, thinking at any moment somebody could dive up the inside?
Yeah, I mean, the two normals going into T1 and going into the chicane, always concerned that, I mean, a lot of the time in race one with Nathan as well, doing a lot of racing with Nathan in race one, we were giving each other a huge amount of respect. And if I'd made a mistake, I'd sort of back off the throttle and let him through in an effort to try and catch up the front three, if that was ever going to be possible. And vice versa, a couple of times Nathan made a mistake, he backed off and let me through. But into the chicane, into T1, you've got to be on your game because you're getting ready for someone to chuck it up the inside, one way or another.
I see. And, well, to be fair, you managed it very well. And then going into the feature, of course, we talked a little bit about what happened, the spin. We won't cover it any further. But for the remainder of the race, you could have just sat in the pit lane, but you stayed out there, put in all the laps, managed to get to the end, finished 30th, but I suspect it was the experience and getting out there that was the most important part.
Yeah, definitely. Come here to drive the skippy, come here to have a race. I thought I'll hang on in there in case there's some incidents in front. You hope there aren't, but if there are, then take advantage of them. But yeah, that never really happened. So I just wanted round to the end and made sure I tried to stay out of everyone's way. I had a couple of passes to unlap myself, I think 3 or 4 times, but that race was pretty much done straight after that. Apologies to Klaus. He unfortunately got involved in that as well, but luckily it was only Klaus that got involved in that, so no one else seemed to get involved. There was a couple of possibly knock-on things which were going on into that corner before they even got to me sideways. So happily won't take responsibility for that. But yeah, for Klaus, apologies to Klaus.
Well, I'm sure Klaus will appreciate the apologies, but we make no apology when we come to ask you. So it hasn't quite worked out at Donington Park, but Alton Park next year, surely you're going to be bouncing back.
Oh yeah, bring it on. Love Alton Park. I think everyone loves Alton Park. It's one of the best racing tracks out there, which is why I got on the calendar. So yeah, really looking forward to Alton Park. I think Adam's going to be frighteningly fast because he lives pretty close to it. It's his home circuit. He's frighteningly fast in most places, but sticking on his home circuit, I don't think it's going to be any stopping him. But it's going to be another great night of racing, we hope.
Oh, fantastic. And we definitely look forward to all the action as it unfolds in a week's time. But just as we get ready to let you go, Jeff, it has been a recurring thing. You've probably heard it already. I do have to ask you, 2026 is around the corner. What is your sim racing New Year's resolution?
To try not to spin with cold tyres. We'll just go with that. Try not to spin with cold tyres.
Oh, fair.
Was that a bit too predictable?
I don't know what could have influenced it, to be fair. I'm sure it's been drawn on multiple experiences, not just tonight.
That'll be it. That'll be it.
Oh, fair play to you, Jeff. Well, with that, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me for an interview this evening, and well done to you on a brilliant qualifying lap, followed up by a superb run in the sprint. We'll see you at Alton Park in a week's time, but until then, my friend, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Great stuff. Thanks for everything you're doing, Paul. Much appreciated.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Jeff Randall for the Old Git Racing team, who in the end always able to have a smile no matter how bad things get on the night. And talking about in particular the fact that with the spin all down to cold tyres in the early stages of race number 2, an innocent mistake, although he did mention the fact that it was already getting a bit argy-bargy further up the road, or some contact was playing out. However, focusing more on himself, knew that he went into McLean's corner too hot with cold tyres, and unfortunately ended up collecting Klaus Biedermann as a result of it, but was grateful only to collect the one driver, because the last thing you want to do is cause a domino effect and multiple cars in a collision. But turning it around, of course, that'll be his New Year's resolution, not to spin on cold tyres. But there were plenty of positives. Firstly, one of the biggest positives, of course, was that qualifying session. 6th place, and really enjoying the switch to the format of your fastest lap matters most, after a lot of drivers were caught out by the 3-lap average last time out at Brands Hatch. And then, in the race, the first race of the day, being able to convert that seat into a 4th place finish, having to hold off an absolutely huge haul of cars. And I do like that metaphor of being the caravan going down a single file road all the way down to the Devon countryside, because he definitely tried to make himself as wide as possible, and is successful in doing so. And for Jeff Randall, when we do go all the way to Donington Park, well, something tells me he may be carrying on, and could we see him on the podium there? Well, I wouldn't rule him out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come. And, well, who's it going to be? Let's find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our final interviewee, and joining me in the interview room now is none other than George Mattock. Good evening to you, George, and well, what a day you've had here at Donington Park. You may not have been fighting for top 10 positions, but you definitely got into the thick of the fighting in both races. Although saying that, of course, you were right towards the front, of course, in our feature race, so it went a bit wrong. How have you felt coming out of tonight?
Hello, nice to talk to you, Paul. Yeah, it was fun. This is my first couple of weeks back in about four or 5 years from Skip Barber racing, so it was good fun to be back. And yeah, we used to have a Monday night league that we did every week, a UK league, and it was absolute carnage, and I loved it. I'm very good friends with Nathan. He was the one who got me back into it. He was like, oh, you got to come back, there's a new league. So I jumped back in, but I had literally no practice, so I was very surprised to be leading the race. Messed up qualifying really badly. And yeah, managed to lead quite a bit, and then yeah, just got launched on by Adam, got put off, sent off the track, and then went from 1st to 5th in about 2 corners, and then yeah, just basically got wiped out on the what was it, lap 10, lap 11. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of contact. I think it was Gordon. Yeah, we were 3 wide. I don't think he realised I was next to him. He moved a little bit. I went flying through the air, and that was it. But luckily, I didn't wipe anyone else out in that pack, and they were able to continue. So yeah, very very chaotic. Didn't expect I was going to jump in for an interview. Just came for a chat. But yeah, that was a chaotic race.
Oh, 100%. There was chaos, but where there's madness and chaos, there's always some method in it. And I do have to ask, given the fact that you're quite experienced in the Skippy and coming back to racing it, what's the one thing you perhaps found the hardest to get used to with the car once again?
I think it's just muscle memory. Honestly, I used to be fast, and now after 4 years, who knew that the muscle memory of braking points and silly things like, I remember Brands was actually a decent race last week, but I forgot, and I couldn't actually click to change how much fuel was going in, and my button on my steering wheel wasn't assigned properly, so I couldn't untick to stop fueling, so I kept putting in way too much fuel, and then lost like 3 or 4 spots and finished behind Nathan, which he was very pleased about. But yeah, just muscle memory for everything. Obviously that comes back with time. Once you spend enough time in a sim, you'll be back in as fast as you were. But I don't have as much time as I had years ago to assign to racing, so I'm just here to enjoy and hopefully not wipe anyone out. That's the main aim.
Oh, it's absolutely fair to be fair, and I do like the approach you're taking. And in qualifying, we did see a 12th place from yourself in the end. It took you some time, to be fair, to get a lap together in qualifying. And if I'm right, I'm just double checking the records here. I think with the laps you were able to put together, only 2. You didn't need 3, unlike anybody else. And 118.483. Were you happy with that?
No, that was so slow. That was so slow. No, I did 1 lap warm up. So I thought, right, let's get the tires in the window for the first lap. And I think my last lap, I was so far, so like just sliding everywhere. I just launched it into the chicane and it ended up binning it. So it was actually my first actual lap that was my quickest lap. Luckily, it was good enough for, I don't even know what it was, 12th or something. But yeah, I need to work on my 1 lap pace. Used to be fast back in the day. So I need to work on that.
Well, you may need to work on your qualifying pace, but one thing that definitely hasn't gone away is your ability to battle. You spent the majority of the sprint fighting with Titus de Jong, and the 2 of you in the end finished only separated by half a tenth, if that. I mean, that style of racing never goes away, surely, from your muscle memory.
Yeah, you always know how to race. It's difficult if you only have 1 monitor. Like, I've only got 1 monitor, I haven't got 3, so I know a lot of these guys have got 3 monitors. So I'm trying to give extra room, probably too much room to everybody. And yeah, it's great fun when you're racing with the super fast guys, but you have to be a little careful when you're in the mid pack, and sometimes, with the greatest respect to people like myself now who are not as experienced at this track, and you've got to give more room, and yeah, you got to be careful. You don't want to ruin anyone's race. It's not the aim to have any collisions or anything. So yeah, experience again is the main thing with that.
Oh, well, the experience shone through, and then going into our feature race, we saw you have a lightning start to take the lead. And then, of course, the pressure that started to build from everybody behind. It didn't quite go the way you wanted it to, and then, like you said, with regards to that contact with Gordon von den Bergen. But surely it must have got your adrenaline pumping to think for at least a lap or 2, you were leading, and then suddenly everybody swarmed on you like a pack of bees.
Yeah, it's great. It's skippies are just great to race, and I knew that even though I had a second gap, those guys can easily tow back if they work together, and that's what they did. Cold tires, first few laps, you're not going to be fast. The pack is going to be quicker than you. I had no practice whatsoever coming into this, so yeah, I was using the race as a practice session. To be honest, I had no expectation to be anywhere near the front. I was just going to follow the rest of the cars and see if I could move up, but somehow I ended up in the lead, and I was like, right, I actually need to focus here. So yeah, it's always good fun racing the skippies, and these guys in this league race hard, but most of the time it's clean. Today wasn't very clean on my what lap was it, lap 11, but yeah, most of the time it's all good natured racing.
Oh, 100%. It didn't quite work out in the end in the feature today, but still we've got plenty more rounds of racing to go. Next time out, we're at Donington Park. What can we expect from you there?
I think I can do that one. I think. So hopefully I'll be able to actually get some practice in. Donington Park's a great track. I know it might be the layout without the chicane. I mean, the reverse grid is going to be something special. So I look forward to competing in that. And it's a track. It's not a very long track as well, so it's one that you can pick up pretty fast. So look forward to it.
Oh, fantastic. And just as we're about to let you go, now, we would ask you what your New Year's sim racing resolution is, but you did mention about getting to grips with the Skippy a little bit more and hopefully be on the grid at Donington Park. So I'm going to let you off that question instead, ask you, George, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Thank you to yourself, Paul, for doing the broadcast. I didn't know there was a broadcast till about half an hour ago, so that's very good. And shout out to Jeff as well for hosting the session. He's a great guy. And yeah, just a shout out to everyone who was watching.
Well, George, we have to say a big thank you to you once again for volunteering your time to join me in the interview. It's been a pleasure to chat with you, and it's been great to see you out on circuit having fun. We hope for plenty more if you are able to make Donington Park in a week's time. But until then, my friend, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too. Thanks, everyone.
So here in there with a very spirited George Mattock, ladies and gentlemen. And well, I can tell you one thing right now. He may not have expected there to be a broadcast. He may have not expected to be joining me in the interview room, but he's gone for it and he's had a lot of fun with it. And talking about there the fact that 4 years gap in his experience with the Skippy machine, well, the muscle memory's gone away and also he's need to learn a few more things. But goodness me, how quickly has it returned? Enjoying the battling out there, whether it's in the sprint for 13th place in the end, alternatively the lead the race in the early stages. And that's the one thing I suspect with George Mattock. It's not going to take him long before he suddenly finds himself relearning everything he learned all those years ago in a very fast and competitive field as well. And well, they do say that sometimes experience is the greatest teacher, and the experience he'll get on this grid will definitely teach him very quickly. But we also heard there about the fact we're really trying to get used to all that muscle memory and relearning the behaviour of the car. It's not something that's easy to do, and when you've got such a competitive field, you definitely find yourself right in the thick of it very early on. But thankfully, there's so many drivers of different skill levels around here. There's always competition, whether you're at the front, in the middle, or at the back of the field. And George knows that, and that's why he's looking forward to Alton Park in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our interviews. And a huge thank you to all 4 of our interviewees who've joined me tonight. We've had a bumper edition of interviews, given the fact it's our first live broadcast of the season. And therefore, why not? We heard from Adam Tomkins firstly, the man who put it on pole and brought it home as the victory in the sprint race, but ended up in 4th in the feature. We then heard from Brian Kelly, the privateer, who absolutely delivered across all 3 races tonight, but was unfortunate to miss out on the podium in the sprint. We also heard from Jeff Randall for Old Git Racing Team, who in the end, whether it was pointing in the right way or the wrong way, well, he's definitely enjoyed himself every which way today. And then we just heard from George Mattock, the man who's definitely relearning the Skippy once again, but is out there to have fun, and definitely he has done so very much so. A big thank you to all 4 of them for our interviews this evening, and well done to them all for their performances over the night at Donington Park. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Skip Barber Community Trophy or how to be on the grid in your own Skippy, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you go and join the official Discord, invite link available on screen. And whether you're a newcomer or a veteran of the car, there is a place for you here in the Skip Barber Community Trophy series. Indeed, you'll never find a more welcoming sim racing community, particularly one that is dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors for this season. They do include, of course, Musical Money Limited, and their web address is musical-money.co.uk. Musical Money is the quick, easy and safe way to turn your unwanted musical equipment into money. No matter what your equipment may be, if you want to sell it, Musical Money is there to buy it, thereby taking the hassle out of selling your unwanted musical equipment. And with their groundbreaking website as shown on screen, selling your musical equipment could not be easier through a website which has put the user experience at the core of its design. So if you want to know more, why not check out musical-money.co.uk today to find out how you can turn your unwanted musical equipment into money. We'd also like to take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, to say a thank you as well to our other sponsor, and that is the Old Git Racing Team. Established in 2024, the Old Git Racing Team aims to prove that age is just a number in the world of racing. Headed by Jeff Randall, the team races in multiple disciplines, but is especially dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine. Regardless of the car, they aim to keep their racing fair and close, whilst also respecting the fact that mistakes can happen to even the very best. And if you'd like to know more about the team, be sure to head to their Twitch channel, which you can see on screen, and that is at twitch.tv/oldgitracer, where you can check out their racing, including their onboard perspectives from the Skip Barber Community Trophy. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, a big thank you to our sponsors, and now it's time to turn our attention to next time. And well, that's all we've got for 2025 here at the Skip Barber Community Trophy, but do not fret, because we are going to be back next weekend. It will be 2026 when we come back, albeit it's not too far away, and on Sunday, the 4th of January, we take a trip further northwards in the United Kingdom to the Alton Park International Circuit. Come join us on Sunday, the 4th of January for rounds 5 and 6, and see how the story continues, and with Adam Tomkins leading the way and looking to try and make it victory in both races at his home circuit at Alton Park. The big question will be, will the home hero come home with victory, or will somebody be able to spoil his honours? For all that and more, tune in next time. But until then, we have been the Skip Barber Community Trophy. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, Remember to have a happy new year, and may 2026 bring you all which you desire and plenty more. And lastly, like our drivers, remember most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, to stay on track. Good night.